I sponsored the girl who collected trash in the neighborhood. She then bullied my daughter at school, causing her to jump to her death. She also turned on the gas in the middle of the night to stage a suicide. She now comfortably occupies my house and squanders my savings. After Rebirth, I watched her standing at the door, tears in her eyes. Auntie, it's so cold outside. Can I stay for one night? The moment my soul left my body. I even doubted if I had died from a heart attack caused by grief. Only when I saw the tightly closed doors and windows and the open gas valve did I realize that I had died from gas poisoning. The door clicked open, and Sangrua, the girl I had been sponsoring, walked in wearing a mask. I desperately shouted for her to run, but I was just a soul. Sangrua couldn't hear me at all. The next moment, something shocking happened. Sangrua calmly walked to my bedside. She checked my breathing and pulse, and after confirming my death, a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Then, she calmly turned off the gas valve, opened the window for ventilation, and called the fire department and the hospital. After doing all this, she slipped a letter into my hand, which was about to become stiff. Auntie, don't blame me for all this. Blame your despicable daughter, Lin. Even if I threatened her with her naked photos, she refused to convince you to add me to your family's household registration. I just wanted to scare her a little. Never thought she'd jump off the building. She was so damn cowardly. I know, she didn't want me to inherit any of your assets. How selfish she is. In my heart, Sangrua has always been the most gentle and obedient child, but now, she looks so vicious, as if possessed by a demon. It's terrifying. Auntie, Lin is already dead. If you still won't treat me as your own daughter, then I'll send you down to join her. After that, she screamed and ran out of the house. Her heartbroken cries echoed through the entire neighborhood. 3 days later, at the farewell ceremony in the funeral parlor, the lawyer read out my thumbprint. Will the house and all the savings go to Sangrua? My parents, who had long settled overseas, couldn't bear the blow and fell gravely ill, and no one ever pursued the matter of my estate again. From then on, Sangrua moved into my house and, with complete peace of mind, squandered my savings. My hatred surged to the sky and shattered the lights in the memorial hall. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on that soft big bed once more, too. The faint knocking on the door woke me. I picked up my phone to check the time, only to realize that I had actually been reborn a week before my daughter jumped from the building. In my previous life, my daughter Lin's suicide by jumping from a building left me in utter agony. After being reborn, the first thing I had to do was hold her tightly and give her a proper hug. When I opened my daughter's bedroom door, she was sitting on the floor like a little quail. She shrank back, covering her ears, tears streaming down her face. The knocking sounded like a death knell, making her terrified. I cursed myself for being so foolish, for not noticing my daughter's unusual behavior earlier and instead letting Sangrua bully her until she jumped to her death. She had a mother, yet she had no one to rely on. How desperate must she have felt? I held her in my arms and comforted her for a while, and then the knocking grew even louder, like a death sentence. I had no choice but to open the door first. When I opened the door, Sangrua stood there with misty, teary eyes, looking at me with eager anticipation. Auntie, Mom won't let me go home. It's really cold in the trash station. Can I stay here for one night? Her face was pale as she kept rubbing her reddened, frozen hands. Her voice was soft and trembling, and everything about her showed just how pitiful and fragile she was. I often let Sangrua stay at my place, so under normal circumstances, I wouldn't refuse a request like this, but the snake-like look in her eyes from my previous life slowly overlapped with the docile, pitiful look before me now. I would never again let this venomous snake spy on everything I had. I forced out a stiff smile, trying my best to keep my voice gentle. Rua, Auntie has come down with influenza A, and it's highly contagious. I'm afraid you can't stay at our place anymore, so you'll have to find somewhere else on your own. With a bang, I slammed the door shut, because I was afraid that the next second, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from beating her to death. After closing the door, I watched her through the peephole. Sure enough, her expression changed from the pitiful look she had just had to something sinister and terrifying. Then she pulled her phone out of her pocket and tapped out a message. I had bought her that phone for 6,999 yuan. It was the same model as my daughter's, so that was how she used this phone to take nude photos of Lin and then blackmail her. After sending the message, she lay down right at the doorway. I was wondering what she was going to do when I saw my daughter come out of the room. Her face was even paler than Sangrua, who had been freezing outside. Mom, is Sister Ruoro here? Let her come in. I'm a little scared, so she can keep me company. I suddenly understood, so she had just been texting to threaten Lin, making Lin speak up for her and let her in. By lying at the doorway, she was waiting for me to open the door and see how pitiful she looked. That way, I would feel guilty and treat her even better in return. She had used this trick countless times in her past life, and every single time I fell for it. I would never be that foolish in this life. I took my daughter's hand and raised my voice at the doorway, trying to make sure Sangrua outside could hear me. Lin, Mommy is sick, and I can't pass it on to Rua, so she can't stay with you. My daughter was so anxious. She was nearly in tears, but I had a nightmare, and I want someone to stay with me. I held my daughter in my arms, and my tears almost fell. Sang-rua threatened her. She must have been terrified. I patted her on the back to comfort her. Sang-rua is the most considerate child. She won't make things difficult for mom. She'll find her own place to sleep and won't worry me. I said this directly to Sang-rua. If I see her sleeping at the door again, it means she's being disrespectful and making things hard. For me, to maintain a good image in my eyes, she naturally wouldn't keep pestering me. I held my daughter in one arm while glancing through the peephole. Sure enough, after hearing my conversation with my daughter, Sang-rua angrily got up from the ground. She glanced at the door, stomped her feet in anger, and left. 3. Sang-rua grew up in the neighborhood, eating meals from various households. In fact, she had parents, and both of them lived in this residential complex. Her family had a second child, a son, and they hardly paid any attention to her. Her parents often beat her, and her screams echoed throughout the entire neighborhood. Sometimes neighbors would call the police, but when the police arrived, her parents would say she was a malicious child who bullied her younger brother. The police would also handle it as a family dispute. After all, who had never hit a child? In a family with a second child, favoritism was perfectly normal. Later, because she hadn't watched her younger brother properly and let him fall headfirst from the bed, her parents kicked her out of the house. After being driven out by her parents, she lived at the neighborhood's garbage station. That garbage station was drafty on all sides, and it was where the cleaners kept their brooms and mops. The neighbors scolded her parents for favoring sons over daughters, but everyone had their own lives and no one could take her in. They only felt sorry for her and would give her some leftovers. She rummaged through trash bins for scrap to sell at the recycling center for a little pocket money. It wasn't until I moved into this neighborhood that I became the first person to invite her to live at my home. I divorced my ex-husband and lived alone with my daughter, feeling sorry for her and thinking my daughter could use a playmate. I often had her come over to eat and play. She had a strong sense of boundaries. If I called her 10 times, she would come only 5. As long as it didn't get colder outside, she would sleep at the garbage station and wouldn't come to my house to sleep. She would help me with chores and was very good at reading people's moods. Over time, I genuinely came to like her. Whenever I bought something for my daughter, I would almost always get her a share too, and I paid almost all of her school fees. I only wanted to create good karma for myself. I never thought about seeking repayment. I never expected it would invite a wolf into the house, harming my daughter and myself as well, because I didn't open the door for Sang-rua. My daughter was terrified and shivered with fear, only falling asleep in the wee hours of the night. I held her close in my arms, greedily savoring the warmth she brought. After she fell asleep, I picked up her phone and started flipping through it. When I found the chat records between my daughter and Sang-rua, I was shaking with rage. Sang-rua completely dropped her usual image as a gentle older sister. She kept calling her a slut over and over. She threatened my daughter into giving her all her pocket money and bringing her good food. She even told my daughter not to answer any exam questions, insisting she had to rank near the very bottom of the entire school, or else she would post her nude photos on the campus bulletin board. No wonder my normally obedient daughter started rebelling after entering 9th grade, often doing things that were completely unlike her. Her academic performance plummeted, and she secretly used her pocket money to buy cosmetics, putting on makeup for school every day. She was caught smoking in the school bathroom and got her parents called in, and she would also buy young adult romance novels. I thought it was just teenage rebellion, compounded by the emotional emptiness of growing up in a single-parent family. I had always indulged her and gone along with her. Whenever I talked to her, she would just cry, apologize, and refuse to explain anything. It turned out that all of this was forced on her by Sang-rua, yet in front of me, Sang-rua always appeared obedient and gentle. By comparison, Sang-rua seemed more like the gentle, well-behaved daughter. Sometimes when I was angry, I would often compare my daughter with Sang-rua, and that must have been very hurtful for her. At school, my daughter was bullied by her, and when she came home, she still had to face the devil I had brought into our house. The chat logs were so numerous I couldn't even finish reading them all, and every single line cut like a knife. Not only did I see the bullying my daughter had suffered, I also learned the real reason she jumped to her death. In the chat logs, Sang-rua's tone was threatening. Rua is such a cutie. 3 days from now it's my brother's birthday. Ask your mom for more money and come support my brother. Rua is such a cutie. If you dare not come, I'll print your photo on flyers with a price list on them. Haha, Rua is such a cutie. Remember to wear heavy makeup and dress a little slutty. My hands were shaking so badly I didn't dare keep scrolling, and I held my daughter tightly in my arms. This would happen 3 days later. I still remember that day clearly. She said a classmate was having a birthday party, and she wanted to stay overnight at the classmate's house. She also asked for a lot of money to buy a birthday gift for the classmate. Although my daughter was rebellious, she had never stayed out all night. I didn't suspect anything, so I gave her the money and told her to have fun. The next day after school, she locked herself in her room and cried her heart out. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she had had a falling out with a classmate. My child was in ninth grade, going through a rebellious phase, and under a lot of academic pressure. Since she didn't want to talk to me, I didn't force her. I even asked Sangrua to come keep her company and comfort her. Unexpectedly, just one day later, she resolutely jumped from the school building. Something must have happened that day, causing her to have a mental breakdown and be unable to bear it any longer. I didn't dare to think further, holding my daughter tightly in my arms. I remember when I first brought Sangrua home, my daughter willingly shared her own clothes with her. Whenever I made something delicious, she would also set aside a portion in a small lunchbox for Sangrua, never once thinking of giving her leftovers. My daughter truly liked Sangrua, treating her like a real sister, as the saying goes. A little kindness is appreciated, but too much breeds resentment, sang. Rua is truly worse than an animal. I must make her pay the price. Daybreak had come, and my daughter was getting her school bag ready to go to school. I hurriedly stopped her. Lynn, Mom isn't feeling well because she's sick. Can you stay home and take care of me? My daughter's tense expression relaxed for a moment, and then she put down her school bag and came over to comfort me. Mom, where do you feel unwell? I'll go to the hospital with you. I patted her head. I've got a bit of a headache. I may have caught a cold, but I'll be fine after taking some medicine. Stay home with me, and you can rest a bit too. To ease my daughter's nervousness, I turned on the TV and watched her favorite drama with her. She kept fidgeting with her phone, her mind clearly elsewhere. Finally, the phone rang with an urgent, demanding tone. I glanced at the phone screen. It displayed Sangrua's name. My daughter visibly shuddered. I took the phone and pressed the answer button. On the call, Sangrua's voice was no longer warm but sharp and icy. Why didn't you come to school? I suppressed the anger in my heart and replied calmly, It's Sangrua. I'm not feeling well, and Lin is at home taking care of me. Is there something you need? Hearing my voice, Sangrua on the other end of the phone was taken aback for a moment. Then, her voice shifted back to its gentle, considerate tone. Oh, it's you, Auntie. I noticed Lin didn't come to school and was worried she might fall behind in her studies, so I called to ask what happened. I let out a cold laugh. Sangrua wasn't worried about Lin's studies at all. With Lin not at school, she probably couldn't bully her anymore. Yes, I've already informed the teacher and requested leave. She can make up for the missed lessons later. Sangrua's voice was gentle, and she sounded as if she were worried about me. Auntie, are you all right? If not, I can take leave to look after you, and let Lin go to school instead. I refused firmly. No need. I have the flu, and I'm afraid Lin might bring the virus to school. We'll just stay home. Sangrua was somewhat disappointed and asked after me a couple more times. I responded to each one, and finally told her, the group chat messages on my phone keep popping up and disturbing my rest, so I turned her phone off. If you need anything, just call my phone. After saying that, I hung up and directly powered off my daughter's phone. My daughter looked bewildered, so I comforted her. Today, you focus on being with Mom, no phone. My daughter was obedient and well-behaved, and didn't object, perhaps relieved that she no longer had to worry about receiving calls from Sangrua. She relaxed and became more engaged in watching TV. My mind was completely elsewhere, not on the TV. Before I could deal with Sangrua once and for all, I couldn't allow her to have any chance of threatening my daughter again. The first thing I needed to do was retrieve my daughter's nude photos from Sangrua. I couldn't risk alerting her and ending up in a desperate confrontation. If you push her too far, she can be ruthless and heartless, and she will definitely post her daughter's photos. She's a minor, so she won't go to jail. It'll probably just be some ideological education, but what should she do if her daughter's nude photos are exposed? I can't let her bear such consequences. 6. The weather has been getting colder continuously, and Sangrua has been sleeping at the garbage station for 3 days in a row, which has drawn the attention of the neighbors in the community. Some neighbors even tagged me in the group chat. Shanrua Shui, at Lin's mom, are you not home? I see Sangrua has been sleeping at the garbage station. Qingfeng Su Lai, at Lin's mom, let the child sleep at your place. It's been getting really cold these past couple of days. Last night she was crying from the cold. The highest good is like water. At Lin's mom, I saw your lights on. You're home, right? Why aren't you coming out to talk? I was cooking, and my phone kept buzzing with notifications, making me irritable and restless. The highest good is like water, is Aunt Wang from the 11th floor, and a gentle breeze comes slowly, is Sister Sun from the building opposite. The two are dance buddies, going square dancing together every day. They're always the first to know about any family gossip or drama in the neighborhood. I remembered during the funeral, the neighbors all came to comfort Sangrua. Aunt Wang said that our mother and daughter died unjustly, and that it was simply our fate. Sister Sun said we probably owed Sangrua from a past life, came to repay the debt in this one, and left once it was done. She even wanted to introduce her own son to Sangrua as a boyfriend. The thing they love most is watching other people's drama and then spreading rumors everywhere. They're really so despicable. I picked up my phone and replied directly to Lin's mom, I'm at home, so it's not convenient to let her stay here. Shan Roashui, isn't it? Just you and Linlin at home. What's inconvenient about that? The child is so pitiful being out there. Qingfeng Shilai. Yeah, just do the good deed all the way and send the Buddha to the west. I snorted coldly and quickly tapped on my phone screen. Linlin's mom. She's not my child, so whether I take her in or not is up to me. Since you're all so kind, why don't you bring her to stay at your place, Changshan Roashui? We're all neighbors. Could you please speak more politely? I was only trying to be kind. Linlin's mom. Is being kind with your mouth enough to count as kindness? Using my efforts to satisfy your so-called kindness. Stop emotionally blackmailing me. Just as they were about to start arguing, Sang Rua spoke up. Sang has no home. Auntie has a cold and didn't want to infect me, so she wouldn't let me go. She meant well too. Thank you, everyone. Please don't argue because of me. The moment I saw Sang Rua, I felt my blood pressure rise. I turned off my phone and never looked at those replies again. Actually, I had once given Sang Rua a key to our house, which was also why she had been able to enter my home so easily in my previous life and turn on the gas, but she never used the key to open the door on her own. Every time she came, she still knocked, which showed how well she respected boundaries and how polite she was. She had been living at the community garbage station since she was 8 years old. Who is there to teach her manners? Looking back now, it was nothing but a scheme. 7. I changed the lock cylinder at home to prevent Sang Rua from sneaking in unnoticed and turning on the gas again to poison me. I installed over a dozen surveillance cameras in various corners of the house. I also requested a long leave for my daughter, took her out for a few days of fun, and after she relaxed, sent her to stay temporarily at her aunt's house. After completing these preparations, I prepared a large table of dishes and invited Sang Rua over for a meal at home. When I called her, she was quite surprised. Upon entering, she reverted to that pitiful demeanor again. Auntie, I thought I had done something to upset you, and that you would never like me again. I forced a smile. You're so well behaved. How could you possibly do anything to upset me? I just have a cold and was afraid of passing it on to you. Come in. I greeted her as she came in. After she entered the house and looked around, she realized she couldn't see her daughter. Auntie, where's Linlin? I didn't answer directly and quickly brought the dishes to the table. Wash your hands first. I just need to take this soup upstairs, and then we can eat. She washed her hands and obediently sat at the dining table waiting for dinner. I placed the soup pot on the table, sat across from her, and spoke solemnly. Rua, this is probably the last meal Auntie is inviting you to eat at my house. Hearing me say that, she immediately became flustered. Why? Sang Rua's reaction was exactly what I had expected. Even if she's as cunning and deceitful as she is, she's still just a 15 or 16-year-old child, not yet mature enough to remain composed. I stared at her intently, not missing even the slightest change in her facial expression. She no longer looked timid or hesitant. Anger was evident on her face, and her voice carried an accusatory tone. I picked up a Coke braised chicken wing, her favorite, and handed it to her, answering with a gloomy look. Ever since Linlin started middle school, she's become rebellious. Not only has her performance in school plummeted, but even her health hasn't been very good. I thought about changing her environment, and since her grandparents are overseas and getting on in years, they also need someone to take care of them, so I planned to immigrate. She was completely stunned, looking at me in disbelief, with helplessness and confusion in her eyes, but more than that, hatred. Of course I wouldn't choose to move, because no matter where I went, she could use Linlin's nude photos to threaten her and try to control me through Linlin. Even if I really managed to move, she would just cling to me and refuse to leave for all kinds of other reasons. Eat quickly, the food's getting cold. She forced herself to stay calm, picked up her chopsticks, and ate the food in her bowl in a daze. After taking a few bites, she looked up at me. Auntie, where's Linlin? I sent Linlin to stay with her aunt for a couple of days. I've already arranged the sale of this house and will complete the transfer procedures in the next few days. I specifically reminded her, don't tell Linlin, or she'll definitely throw a fit and refuse to go. I plan to keep it a secret until everything is finalized, so she won't have any reason to protest. I can't let her have any more contact with Linlin, because I don't know what other tactics she might use to upset her. I've already lost my daughter once, and I don't want to lose her again. After hearing what I said, Sang Rua's eyes darted around rapidly, spinning several times. I figured it was time to give her some personal space so she could calm down properly and think things through. I quietly set an alarm for 2 minutes later. When the alarm went off, I pretended to answer a call and went into the kitchen. The glass wall in the dining room faced the table directly. Through the reflection in the glass, I saw her take out her phone and start sending messages. If I'm not mistaken, she was probably messaging Linlin. At the very least, she needed to get Linlin to stop me. Before I moved out in this neighborhood, I was the only one who kept her in check. Like last time when the temperature suddenly dropped, everyone in the group knew she was crying from the cold, but no one told her to stay at their place. If I left, she would lose everything. How could she possibly let me go? I pretended to be on the phone and deliberately raised my voice. Mom, Dad, I've already found a buyer for the house here. We'll sign the contract in a couple of days. I've already taken Out the 3 million and put it at home, then we can exchange it for foreign currency and deposit it directly into the bank. It could be seen clearly in the reflection on the glass. She stopped typing and listened intently to my phone call. After I hung up, she was still lost in thought, and didn't even notice when I walked up beside her. I snatched her phone away, and she instinctively tried to snatch it back. I directly placed the phone beside her rice bowl and held down her hand. "Stop looking at your phone, hurry up and eat, the food's getting cold." Then I kept mumbling as I usually did when I cared about her. "You kids these days, all you know is getting hooked on your phones." Seeing that I showed no sign of taking her phone, she let down her guard and stopped touching it. I picked up the spoon. "I've been simmering this pig trotter soup all afternoon. It's your favorite." I ladled a full bowl of soup, ready to place it in front of her. Suddenly, as if scalded, my hand slipped, and a bowl of soup splashed all over her, including her phone. The scalding soup splashed on her body, and she instinctively stood up, and I, quick as lightning, picked up her soup-splattered phone. Seeing me pick up the phone, she reached out to snatch it, not caring if she was scalded, and I pretended my hand slipped, dropping the entire phone into the whole pot of soup. Sang-Rua let out a scream. My phone. The phone contained nude photos of my daughter. It was her lifeline, so of course she valued it immensely. She wanted to reach in and fish it out of the pot, but the clay pot retained heat, and the moment her hand touched the soup, she burned herself and quickly pulled back. "Ruoro, it's hot, let me get it." I quickly used a ladle to fish it out, but the more anxious I got, the harder it was to get it out. The ladle seemed to have a mind of its own, wrestling with the phone and the soup. It took several tries before I finally fished it out. As soon as the phone was out, I hurriedly shouted, "Don't try to turn on the screen, the phone has gotten wet, and if you light up the screen now, it could short-circuit and burn out the motherboard." Sang-Rua snatched the phone away, wanting to see whether it had been damaged by soaking, but she was wary of what I said about burning out the motherboard and didn't dare turn it on. She looked it over from side to side. The phone was coated from the charging port to the camera in greasy, sticky pig trotter collagen. Realizing she was powerless, she could only lash out at me in a fit of anger. "Are you disabled? Even a bowl of soup can get spilled, and you can even drop your phone into the pot. It's ruined from soaking." It was the first time she had shouted at me like that, and I immediately put on a stern face. "Sang-Rua, I just accidentally dropped your phone. If it can't be fixed, I'll buy you a new one. Besides, this phone was bought by me." Sang-Rua couldn't keep up the act and instantly revealed her true colors. After shouting, she also realized something was off and hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, Auntie, I was just too anxious and misspoke. Precisely because this phone was bought by you, I cherish it all the more and can't allow even the slightest damage to it." With a stern face, I snatched the phone from her hand, but she gripped it tightly and refused to let go. "I heard that if you drop a water-damaged phone into a bag of rice and roll it around, it'll be fine. Hand it over, and I'll give it a try." She was reluctant to give it up at first, but when she heard I was trying to save the phone and saw my stern expression, she was afraid I'd get angry and finally let go. I let out a soft sigh and, right in front of her, plunged the phone into the kitchen rice bin. Walking into Lean-Lean's room, I picked out a set of Lean-Lean's clothes and handed them to her. "Go change your clothes. It must be uncomfortable being all sticky like that." She glanced longingly in the direction of the phone, but the discomfort of her damp clothes was too much to bear. Left with no choice, she went into Lean-Lean's room to change. She changed quickly and was out in just a minute. Seeing me wiping the dining table, she finally relaxed. "In any case, let's finish this meal. After all, it's our last meal anyway." Seeing the displeasure on my face, she suppressed all her thoughts and quietly ate with me. Children can't hide what's on their minds. While eating, she kept looking toward the phone. Seeing that she wasn't really in the mood to eat either, I took a few casual bites and put down my chopsticks. Under her watchful gaze, I walked into the study. My job is accounting, and there's a file cabinet at home specifically for accounting documents. It has a small built-in safe. Sang-Rua knew that I kept the financial seal and the tax control disc inside to avoid losing them. I deliberately made a lot of noise opening the filing cabinet, and the beeping sounds when I entered the code were probably loud enough for anyone outside to hear clearly. I took out a whole bundle of cash from the filing cabinet, a full 100,000. Holding that bundle of cash, I went to the kitchen, got a pair of kitchen scissors, cut off the plastic tie around the money, pulled out a stack from inside, and started counting it. As I counted, I kept glancing at Sang-Rua out of the corner of my eye. Her eyes no longer drifted toward the phone in the rice bucket. Instead, they were fixed tightly on the money in my hands. That greedy gaze was hot and searing, as if it could bore a hole right through my hand. I figured she probably had never seen so much money in her entire life. I counted out 7,000 yuan and handed it to her. "Take this money. If your phone breaks, use it to buy a new one. If it doesn't, consider it pocket money from me. After all, I'm leaving soon and won't be able to look after you anymore." Sang-Rua declined out of habit a few times, then accepted it as she had before. However, this time, she didn't show the usual joy. After seeing so much money, who would still care about a few thousand yuan. I walked to the kitchen, took her phone out of the rice bin right in front of her, and handed it to her. I'm not feeling well and need to rest early. She only showed disappointment, and left without any lingering attachment. I didn't ask her to stay, and she wasn't surprised, given the unpleasantness that had just passed between us, and I don't think she wanted to stay. Because she had too much to do, I watched her leave through the peephole, waited another 20 minutes to make sure she wouldn't come back. Back in the kitchen, I pulled out a phone from deep inside the rice bag. The phone Sang Rua took was a second-hand one I deliberately soaked in water to damage. I had already taken it to an after-sales service beforehand and was told there was no way to repair it except by replacing the motherboard, and a phone with a replaced motherboard is essentially a new phone. The original data would be completely gone. I really wanted to see what kind of expression she would have when she realized the data was gone. Unfortunately, I couldn't risk alerting her by letting her know the phone had been swapped, because I wasn't sure if those photos had backups, but now there should be something more enticing to Sang Rua than nude photos in this life. I've raised the stakes. Sang Rua, you're tempted now, aren't you? Would a house and 3 million yuan in cash be enough to lure you onto the same path as in your previous life? 8. I took the phone to after sales repair, and they only cleaned it, then the phone could power on again. Sure enough, replacing the phone was the right choice. Phones are waterproof now anyway. If it doesn't get ruined by soaking, I won't have a second chance to get her phone. After it was fixed, I browsed through the photo album, and sure enough, it contained Lin's nude photos. Most were secretly taken while she was showering, or while she was sleeping with her pajamas lifted, and even included secretly taken photos of me. I was so furious I almost wanted to smash this phone to pieces. I really let Sang Rua get away with too much. She lived in my house, and both I and Lin had no guard against her. Thinking about after my death, when the police conducted routine investigations, they also found Sang Rua's fingerprints in the kitchen, but neighbors could testify that Sang Rua indeed lived in my house. Her fingerprints and traces of daily life were everywhere in the house, so finding her fingerprints in the kitchen was not surprising. Moreover, Sang Rua had an alibi. Her delinquent friends from outside school confirmed they were playing cards together in a rental apartment until she returned home only after my incident occurred. I deleted the photos on my phone one by one and took screenshots of hundreds of chat records as evidence. It wasn't until the app warned me that the account had been logged in from another location that I knew Sang Rua's fake phone had been fixed. I changed the lock cylinder back to the original one and made all the necessary preparations. During the day, I checked into a hotel to catch up on sleep. At night, I stayed home waiting for Sang Rua to come looking for me. Finally, on the third day, she made her move. 3 a.m. is when people sleep the deepest, and the whole neighborhood had fallen into complete silence. I pricked up my ears, listening to every sound around me. The door lock was quietly turned open, and Sang Rua tiptoed in. I quickly lay back down and pretended to be fast asleep. Since Lin became rebellious, I had to tutor her on her homework until 12 every night. On top of the troubles at work, I was under tremendous mental stress and had to rely on sleeping pills to fall asleep every day. Sang Rua knew about this. Otherwise, in my previous life, I wouldn't have even realized when she came in. She came into my room and called out to me softly a few times, "Auntie, auntie." When I didn't respond, she went outside and said in a low voice, "Hurry in, quietly, don't wake anyone up." A clatter of footsteps echoed in the room. Move the cabinet in the study away. Gently, the sound of chaotic footsteps entered the study. Several people hastily lifted the cabinet and tiptoed out. Only after they left it I finally let out a sigh of relief. She acted according to the route I had calculated. I deliberately let her overhear my phone call, deliberately used money to provoke her, deliberately let her know the money was in the safe. Sang Rua didn't know the safes combination. She would definitely need to find someone to carry this cabinet away to get the money inside. Who would she turn to? Of course, those good brothers from her past life who provided her with an alibi. Those good brothers forged evidence for her, giving her a chance to escape legal punishment. There's also a possibility they did something unforgivable to Lin. How could I let them go? In fact, I was gambling too, betting that she wouldn't dare kill me outright. After all, she was just a child, and I was an adult. Besides, her goal was to get my house. So of course she would want to inherit the property cleanly, without getting a speck of filth on her hands. I guess she would use the same method as in my previous life, disguising it to look like I had committed suicide. Once I was dead, she would hold Lin's nude photos and use them to threaten and control her, or, just like in my previous life, force Lin to commit suicide, and then the house would still become hers alone. Actually, I wasn't completely unprepared. I was tightly gripping a watermelon knife in my hand. If they made any aggressive moves, I could at least defend myself. If things really went south, I could always open the window and jump out to escape. I live on the second floor. At worst, it would just be a fracture. Nothing life-threatening. Sang Rua was very cautious. After those people carried the cabinet away, she went to the kitchen, got a mop, and mopped the floor to clean up the messy footprints. After finishing all that, she stood at the doorway, lost in thought. For a long time and finally, she made her choice. She walked into the kitchen and turned on the gas, then she gently closed the door behind her and left the scene. I remained lying in bed, motionless. I suppressed the urge to scream, my whole body trembling slightly from excitement. Sang Rua, you're finished. 9. Just like in a past life, police and firefighters arrived at the neighborhood in the middle of the night, setting up a perimeter. The next day, the news of Sang Rua's arrest sent shockwaves through the entire neighborhood. I lay in a hospital bed, breathing oxygen, watching the group chat explode with chaos. Shanshan Ruashui, at Lingling's mom, what's going on? I heard you called the police and had Sang Rua arrested. Breeze whispers gently, at Linen's mom, Sang Rua is already pitiful enough. What happened that couldn't be endured, that it had to be taken to the point of calling the police? There are no surveillance cameras in the old neighborhood, so no one knows what happened. It's okay, I have it at home. I ignored their questions and directly threw out 2 video clips. One was the surveillance video from the living room. In the video, Sang Rua entered first. 1 minute later, 4 young men dressed like social hooligans walked in and headed toward the study. About 5 minutes later, they carried out a filing cabinet and swaggered off. The other was of Sang Rua mopping the floor to cover up the evidence, before finally walking into the kitchen and turning on the gas valve. 5 minutes later, the gas monitoring alarm system in the kitchen went off, the siren blaring loudly. Then I stumbled into the kitchen, shut off the gas valve, opened the window to ventilate the room, and the alarm sounded. After the video was posted, the noisy group fell instantly silent. I continued adding more. Lin's mom, at around 10 p.m. yesterday, Sang Rua, together with 4 delinquent youths, broke into a home to commit theft. Lin's mom, after successfully stealing the goods, they turned on the gas again, attempting to create the appearance that I had committed suicide. Lin's mom, when the police made the arrest, they found a suicide note on her that was copied in my handwriting. Lin's mom, at Qingfeng Shilai at Shanshui Zuwater, please tell me, how am I supposed to bear this? The group exploded instantly, and many people even tagged Sang Rua's biological parents, who had been lurking in the chat all along. Sang Rua's mother finally could no longer withstand the pressure and came forward to speak. A real estate agency. We cut ties with that little beast a long time ago. Whatever she does has nothing to do with me. A real estate agency. I told you before, she was born evil, but you didn't believe me. A real estate agency. She deliberately pushed her younger brother off the bed, and even used boiling water to make him formula, scalding the infant's mouth with blisters. She deliberately fed her brother dried fruit and almost choked the child to death. We had no choice but to throw her out. After saying all this, she left the group. I no longer bothered with the chaos in the group either and turned off my phone, so everything had been a warning all along. It was me being a doormat, me being a saint, me having only myself to blame. I once heard someone say that the suffering others are going through is the karma they are meant to bear. If you forcefully help them, you disrupt that karma, and then the suffering they were supposed to endure will be borne by you instead. Now I believe those words more than ever. Sometimes you really should let go of the urge to help others and respect their choices. 10. In the 6th month after Sang Rua was arrested, the case finally went to trial. Before the hearing, Sang Rua was escorted into the courtroom under guard. As she passed by me, she gave a charming smile. Auntie, I'm under 18, you know, there are laws protecting minors. I guess a little ideological education is all it'll take, and we'll probably be able to see each other again soon. I clenched my fists in bitter hatred. She hadn't acted on a whim, she knew everything, and she wasn't afraid at all that the truth would come out. But this time, she had miscalculated. At the trial, Sang Rua confessed to every act she had committed without reservation. She wore a cheerful smile, showing no regret or fear. She even asked the judge whether, since she had been so honest and cooperative with the investigation, she could be exempt from even ideological re-education. But the moment she heard the judge's verdict, the smile on her face gradually froze, finally replaced by fear. Defendant Sang Rua, charged with burglary and intentional homicide. The suspect is under 18, but over 16. The theft amount was enormous, and the premeditated murder was especially egregious. He is sentenced to 8 years in prison. Sang Rua cried out in disbelief, her voice choked with tears. Was the sentence wrong? I'm a minor. I'm protected by the juvenile protection law. I refuse to accept this. I demand a retrial. I didn't kill anyone. She was obviously alive and well. I didn't spend a single cent of the money I robbed either. Silence. The judge's voice was stern and commanding, striking fear into the heart. Sang Rua didn't dare shout anymore and could only sob softly. The verdicts for the other 4 people were read out. All the way to the end, the police escorted Sang Rua outside, and Sang Rua struggled and cried out, Auntie, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please let me go. Okay, Auntie, my parents never cared about me since I was little. I'm already this pitiful, so can you just stop pursuing this any further? She cried and begged all the way, but I remained unmoved. In the end, she shouted in exasperation, You took me in just to show off. Your husband has even left you, which proves what a disgusting woman you are. You're so rich. What's the big deal about giving me a little to spend? I have naked photos of that slut Lin Lin. If you won't let me go, I'll spread them everywhere. Bitch, you two bitches, I won't let you get away with this. The voice gradually faded away, leaving only sobs echoing down the hallway. 11. In the end, I sold the house and moved to a new city with Lin Lin. There were too many painful memories here for her, and I didn't want them to continue affecting her. The new city we settled in has spring-like weather all year round, and I brought my parents from abroad to live with us. Taking care of them in their old age, Lin Lin adjusted well to her new school. Her grades gradually improved, and she made new friends. She became the lively and cheerful child she used to be again. She got into a top-tier high school, then a top university, and started dating a boyfriend at school. Although that incident left her with an indelible scar, even scars fade with time, until only a small mark remains. 12. I heard about Sangrua again 10 years later, when my daughter Lin Lin had already gone abroad with her boyfriend to study, and I had returned to my hometown to bury my parents. When I went back to the community office to cancel my parents' household registration, I ran into the then community director. Since my case was very famous, she still remembered me. She told me about Sangrua. It turned out that Sangrua had not served 8 years in prison. Because of her good behavior, she was released after 6 years. When she came out, she was already a 22-year-old young woman. She had always been full of bad ideas, and in prison, she had also studied legal knowledge. From the evidence I used to sue her back then, she found many testimonies favorable to her and sued her parents for abandonment to avoid a criminal record and for the sake of their son's future. Her parents chose to settle privately. From then on, Sangrua began to have a home. She didn't work. Whenever she ran out of money, she would ask her parents for it. She spent her days hanging out with that gang of troublemakers. Later, she latched onto Sister Sun's son while dating Sister Sun's son. She was also involved with a local troublemaker. The two young men ended up fighting over her, and the troublemaker accidentally killed Sister Sun's son. Sister Sun refused to let it go, bringing people to her house every day to cause trouble. Her family had no choice but to compensate Sister Sun with their apartment in the neighborhood. Sangrua's parents gave up an apartment as compensation and completely severed ties with her. From then on, Sangrua wasn't in a hurry either. She spent her days loitering at the doorstep of Aunt Wang, who had no children, because Aunt Wang often defended her, cared for her, and spoke up for her in the group chat. Sangrua demanded to become Aunt Wang's goddaughter and inherit her property. Aunt Wang was so angry she developed heart problems and was hospitalized, while Sangrua brazenly occupied her house. Later, she got a boyfriend and became pregnant. Before the child was born, you could still see the man running around, trying to be attentive. Shortly after the child was born, the man never came again. With the help of community workers, Sangrua barely managed to raise the child, then completely let go and stopped caring. The 5-year-old child, just like she had been back then, begged for food to survive in the neighborhood, but recalling what had happened before, no one dared to give that child any food again. With no food to eat, the child learned to cook for themselves, but the child was too young. Once, after cooking, they forgot to turn off the gas. Sangrua, drunk and unaware, ended up dying at home from carbon monoxide poisoning. At this point, the community director let out a deep sigh. It's just a pity that the child lost their family at such a young age and was sent to the welfare home by our community. After bidding farewell to the director, I set off on my way home. My hatred for Sangrua will not disappear with her death. It's just filled with endless sighs. Everyone says that good and evil will be repaid, but it turns out Sangrua had long ago chosen her own ending with her own hands. However, I still can't help but entertain my own malicious thoughts. This thought sent chills through my body even in the height of summer. That child, did they forget to turn off the gas, or did they open it on purpose? The end. Story 2. In my past life, Grandma entrusted me with our family's sole heirloom on her deathbed. She handed me a pitch-black wooden box, saying it would bring protection and peace. I guarded it with my life, preventing my greedy aunt from snatching it away, but Aunt held a grudge, spreading rumors that I'd stolen gold bars and turning the whole family against me. I died consumed by sorrow, clutching that wretched box till my last breath. Little did they know, the box contained no treasure, but a cursed object suppressing our family's misfortune. Whoever holds it shall bear the family's calamities. Reborn at Grandma's sickbed, I saw second aunt lunging for the box. I loosened my grip and feigned reluctance, shouting, "Auntie, you can't just snatch it. Grandma gave this to me." Watching her smug face after she grabbed the box, I smiled. "Auntie, I hope you're ready for this windfall of fortune coming your way. Lyra, your grandmother's fading fast. At least shed some tears, you heartless girl." The shrill curses pierced through my eardrums. In my past life, Aunt Mabel drove me to utter despair. Ailing in my early 30s, I died alone in an unheated rental. My stiff fingers Still clutched that pitch-black wooden box when death came. Lyra, Grandma's withered hand grasped mine from the hospital bed. As I lowered my head, tears came crashing down instantly. Grandma, this is for you. With trembling hands, she pulled out that familiar black wooden box from beneath her pillow. Take it, for protection. This is it. This box marked the beginning of my living nightmare, one when I tried to protect it. Aunt Mabel went berserk, telling everyone I'd stolen Grandma's gold. Bars, the whole family, including my own parents, believed her. They shunned me, ostracized me, called me an ungrateful wretch to my dying day. I never understood what I did wrong. Only after death, when my soul was trapped in that box, did I realize it was never any treasure. My eyes snapped open. This cursed object had been suppressing generations of misfortune for the Luo family. Am I not dead? Grandma made me hold it so I'd take the family's misfortune upon myself. By bearing this burden, the rest of the Luo family could sail smoothly through life. Only then could Auntie's son Felix, my cousin, pass his civil service exam and marry a beautiful wife. I was the sacrificial lamb. Mom, you're playing favorites. A figure suddenly lunged toward the bedside. It was Aunt Mabel. Though advanced in years, she maintained herself well, her face now twisted with greed. What treasure did you give this brat? She's just a worthless girl. She doesn't deserve anything precious. Show me now. She lunged to snatch it without hesitation. In my past life, I clung desperately until she broke my fingernails. This time around, watching her face charge toward me, I let go. Oops, the box accidentally slipped from her grasp. Mabel snatched the box with lightning reflexes, clutching it protectively like a starving wolf guarding its prey. Every eye in the room was fixed on her. I burst into loud, heart-wrenching sobs and lunged to grab her clothes. Auntie, you can't take it. Grandma gave this to me. Give it back. Mabel froze. She clutched the box desperately, her eyes darting nervously. She must have thought that since I was crying so bitterly, this must contain some priceless treasure. What's there to cry about over some shabby wooden box? Mabel clutched the box tighter to her chest. What do children know? I'm just keeping it safe for you. Auntie, my parents pulled me back. Stop making a scene. She's your elder. That's just how my parents are, spineless, incompetent, always trying to smooth things over. Mabel hugged the box, shooting me a triumphant glance. I lowered my head, hiding the smile tugging at my lips. Grandma's breathing ceased completely at that moment. Auntie, no, Mabel, the Luo family's misfortune warder. This overwhelming fortune is now firmly in your hands. Relocation. Grandma's funeral was arranged in great haste. Aunt Mabel broke from her usual pattern. Instead of wailing dramatically at the funeral, she appeared remarkably energetic. I spotted her sneaking into corners several times, furtively fingering that black wooden box in her pocket. Her beady triangular eyes glittered with nothing but dreams of striking it rich. Felix, your mother's gotten you something precious. Carrying the memorial photo frame, I happened to overhear Auntie making a call to cousin Felix. Felix was Auntie's pride and joy, fresh out of college and prepping for that coveted civil service exam, the iron rice bowl job downtown. Your grandma gave this to me. The old lady always played favorites. Keep this treasure in your room. It'll bless your interview. Bring honor to our ancestors. I kept walking without breaking stride. In my past life, I'd placed that box by my bedside, taking the family's misfortune upon myself. This time around, Auntie placed it in her son Felix's room right after the funeral. I started packing my things. Lyra, where do you think you're going? Mom, in my suitcase. Your grandmother just passed, and you're already running off. Got a job, company housing. I lied flatly. Oh, you silly child. Goodness, sister-in-law, why bother with her? Aunt Mabel sauntered over cracking melon seeds, her face flushed with excitement. Let her go if she wants. Just some silly girl who'll belong to another family soon anyway. Perfect timing. We can clear out her room for my Felix's study. My father opened his mouth, then lowered his head and murmured, Mabel, about that room. What's the problem? Auntie narrowed her eyes. If Lyra isn't staying, why can't my Felix live here? If he gets accepted, wouldn't that reflect well on all of us? My parents immediately fell silent. I dragged my suitcase out of that so-called home without looking back. I rented a tiny studio outside, a cramped north-facing room with dim lighting, but I've tidied everything up perfectly. Lying on my narrow bed, I breathed in the sun-warmed scent from my quilt. The mountain that had weighed me down for over a decade, that cursed black box, that vortex of misfortune, was finally lifted. I felt completely weightless. I went downstairs and bought a steaming bowl of wonton soup from a street vendor. It tasted absolutely divine. A new chapter begins. 3 misfortunes. I landed an internship at a small ad agency in the south side of town. The work was exhausting, but my mind stayed sharp. I picked things up quickly. In my past life, it felt like I was constantly shrouded in fog. Everything went wrong no matter what I did. Now that fog has lifted, Lyra, quick reflexes there. That day, when the manager urgently needed a document, I managed to Retrieve it from the archives in just 3 minutes, all from memory. The manager was pleased and gave me an approving pat on the shoulder. I felt really good about it. That would have been absolutely impossible before. The old me would have just fumbled around and messed everything up. Just as I was feeling happy, my mom called. "Lyra, your cousin, something terrible happened." My heart skipped a beat, that fast. "What's wrong with Felix?" He passed the interview. Everything was settled. He went for the medical check today, but Mom's voice sounded strange. "The report says he tested positive for drugs." "Felix, doing drugs? That's impossible. Felix is Auntie's golden boy. She keeps him on such a tight leash. She doesn't even smoke. How could? Maybe there's been some mistake." "Your aunt's saying the same thing. She's making a scene at the hospital. Claims they're framing an innocent man." Felix is terrified too, swearing he'd never do such a thing. Mom said frantically, "Your aunt wants you there right now. We're family after all." "Mom, I'm at work and swamped." I cut her off bluntly. "Medical reports don't lie. Aunt's tantrum won't change anything. You impossible child." That evening, I finally heard how things played out. Auntie Eyre caused such a scene at the hospital that they eventually called the police. Even the police couldn't calm her down. She threw herself on the floor screaming that the hospital staff were conspiring against her son. Left with no choice, the hospital drew another blood sample from Felix right in front of the officers. Priority retesting was ordered. The results are in negative. False alarm, total false alarm. Auntie Eyre bombarded the family group chat with dozens of gloating voice messages. I knew my Felix was innocent. Those blind doctors almost ruined my son's future. That black wooden box. No, that treasure. It's truly miraculous. She credited it to the treasure working its magic, but I knew this wasn't divine intervention. This was a warning. Misfortune had already begun its work, starting with a small prank, a deadly prank, for financial ruin. Felix's medical exam turned out to be a false alarm, but it still raised suspicions at the staffing department. They'd promised a Monday start date, but now they're saying the approval process needs more time. Aunt Mabel was fuming, but too scared to make a scene at the hospital. She just took it out on the doctors at home. The louder she ranted, the more I knew she was covering her own insecurity. Meanwhile, my own job was finally getting on track. Seeing how diligent and reliable I was, my supervisor started assigning me some basic design drafts that day. I just finished a design draft when my colleague Xiao Zhang walked by holding a coffee. "Lyra, you've been working hard." As he reached out, he fumbled with the coffee. It was about to spill all over my laptop, but just a second before, I happened to feel thirsty and reached for the water glass on the table. Very well, that single movement made me shift back 5 centimeters. Scorching coffee spilled all over the desk in front of me, while my laptop remained completely untouched. "Oh my god." Xiao Zhang turned pale with fright. "Lyra, are you okay?" "Your laptop." "I'm fine. And so is the computer." I grabbed a tissue to wipe the desk, feeling a wave of lingering fear. 1 second later, or if I hadn't moved, this laptop would have been toast. My paycheck this month couldn't cover a new computer. "You got really lucky," Xiao Zhang said. I couldn't stand to spend another second in that house. Yes, my luck has turned around. Just ordinary luck. Nothing special, but not bad either. But Auntie's streak of bad luck was only beginning. She went and made another scene at the hospital. She demanded that hospital issue a formal apology to her son and pay emotional distress compensation. "My son is heaven's favored child. You almost ruined him. This isn't over until we get at least 80 grand. She started rolling around on the hospital lobby floor. The hospital had no choice but to call the police. The police called my parents and uncle over for mediation. My aunt sat on the floor, pointing at the surveillance footage and yelling, "Look, it's him. He messed up last time too. He's deliberately sabotaging our Felix." After causing a scene all morning and exhausting herself, she was finally escorted out of the hospital by the police. She walked away empty-handed, fuming with anger. She headed home. Still seething on the bus, her fingers brushed against the black wooden box in her pocket. "Damn it, those bastards. Just wait till my son gets hired. I'll make you pay one by one." Muttering curses under her breath, she stepped off the bus. She went to the market intending to buy a fish. She reached into her pocket for money. The pocket was empty. Stunned, she checked again. There's a huge tear at the bottom of the pocket, cut open with a blade. Her entire paycheck from last month, plus the money she'd saved for Felix's new suit, all of it was in that wallet. Not a penny left. "My money!" Auntie Eyre's piercing shriek echoed through the entire wet market. Chapter 5, The Rift. Having lost her money, Auntie Eyre was nearly driven mad. She called the police, but the surveillance footage showed nothing conclusive. The bus was packed shoulder to shoulder, making it impossible to identify the culprit. That money was as good as gone. Auntie fell seriously ill after returning home. With her falling ill, Felix's golden opportunity vanished into thin air. That organization dragged their feet for half a month before finally responding. "All positions are currently filled. We'll keep Comrade Felix's materials on file in our talent database." Corporate speak for get lost. Felix's chances were completely shot. "This is all your fault. You're nothing but bad luck." Auntie Eyre lay in bed, jabbing her finger at Uncle Eyre's face. "If you weren't so useless, would I have needed to make a scene at the hospital?" If I hadn't gone there, would that thief have targeted me? Uncle Air was always the silent type, too cowed to talk back, and Felix, she turned her fury on her son. You're just as hopeless. How could you mess up a simple medical checkup? What were you even doing all this time? Felix protested bitterly. Mom, that was the hospital's mistake. I told you already. Mistake. One wrong move and you're done for. Some people just aren't cut out for this. Mabel took out all her frustrations on her family just then. Felix's girlfriend of 3 years, Chloe, showed up at their doorstep. Chloe came to discuss housing matters. Her family was well off, and both families had agreed that once Felix secured his job, they'd pool money for the down payment. Auntie, about Felix's job, Chloe asked cautiously, holding a fruit basket. What job? It's gone. Mabel was already fuming with nowhere to vent, and seeing Chloe only made her angrier. You jinx. The moment you step in, you ask about his job. Now that my Felix lost his job, you want to break up over my dead body. Chloe's eyes welled up with tears from the scolding. Auntie, that's not what I meant. Don't play innocent. Your whole family looks down on us. Now that my Felix is down on his luck, you want out, you little gold digger. Mabel's insults grew increasingly vicious. Mom, that's enough. Felix snapped impatiently. That's enough. Mabel sprang from the bed. Who do you think I'm doing this for? You ungrateful brat. How dare you take their side? She slapped Felix across the face. Chloe was completely stunned. She stared at this ferocious would-be mother-in-law, then glanced at Felix covering his face in silent fear. Chloe hurled the fruit basket onto the ground. Mabel, you're insane. The wedding's off. Any woman marrying into your family would be cursed for eternity. Chloe ran off in tears. Auntie's household was in complete chaos. Meanwhile, I received my first bonus this month. The manager said clients were very pleased with my design version. The bonus isn't much, just $800. I bought myself a new coat, a warm, off-white one. Standing before the mirror, the rosy-cheeked girl with sparkling eyes staring back felt both unfamiliar and yet so known. Misfortune has finally dropped its disguise. Chloe's runaway completely called off the wedding. I froze. Felix lost both his job and his wife overnight. He locked himself in his room for 3 straight days. Aunt Mabel was in a complete panic now. Her illness had passed, her temper cooled, and she turned to worshipping deities. She believed her treasure wasn't receiving sufficient offerings. She brought out that ebony box, burning the finest sandalwood incense before it, bowing 3 times daily. Oh, precious box, tell me what you desire. My money's gone. My son lost his job. What must I do for you to bless my Felix? She knelt weeping before the altar. The ebony box grew darker and glossier from years of incense smoke. Mabel enshrined it like a sacred relic in Felix's room, positioned squarely opposite his bed. Don't be afraid, Felix, Mama's here. This treasure will protect you. Felix remained silent. When night fell, Mabel couldn't sleep. She felt uneasy deep down. In the dead of night, she heard a loud thud from Felix's room. I hung up the phone. She rushed over immediately. Felix's door was locked from the inside. Felix, what's wrong? Open the door. There was no response from inside. Terrified out of her wits, Mabel grabbed a kitchen cleaver and hacked through the door lock with a few swift blows. She burst into the room. Felix lay convulsing on the floor, foaming at the mouth. An empty sleeping pill bottle lay overturned on the table beside him. Felix, Mabel's scream pierced the night air. An ambulance came wailing down the street. My uncle, parents, the whole household was startled awake. Felix was carried away on a stretcher, with Mabel trailing behind him, her hair disheveled like a madwoman. I stood at the very back of the crowd. I saw the ebony box sitting quietly on Felix's desk. The sandalwood-scented box emitted a peculiar cloying sweetness tinged with decay. Beneath the box lay a sheet of paper. It was Felix's medical re-examination report. The negative test results were now crawling with dense, corpse-like black spots that hadn't been there before. Misfortune had dropped its disguise. Felix was revived. After stomach pumping in 4 fluids, they finally pulled him back from death's door, but he's completely broken now. The doctor said he overdosed severely, causing nerve damage that may lead to lasting complications. Aunt Mabel's hair turned completely white overnight. She sat in the hospital corridor with hollow eyes. She couldn't understand. She'd clearly obtained the treasure, was supposedly the chosen one. How did she end up like this? His job's gone, his fiancée left him, and now he nearly lost his life too. Suddenly, something occurred to her. It was Lyra, that damn girl. It's her. She's the one who did this to me. Mabel stormed out of the hospital like a madwoman and rushed to my place. By my place, I mean my parents' house. She kicked the door open with one furious blow. Where's Lyra? That little bitch. Get her out here now. My parents were terrified. Mabel, have you lost your mind? Lyra moved out ages ago. Moved out. Mabel sneered. After what she's done to this family, she thinks she can run. Oh hell no. She gave me that black wooden box. That thing is cursed. She did it on purpose to harm me and my Felix. Mabel finally figured it out, but what she realized wasn't her own greed. It Was my scheming cursed? Wasn't that Grandma's precious heirloom? What treasure? Mabel wailed hysterically. That thing's cursed. Whoever takes it meets disaster. That little witch Lyra knew all along. She deliberately left it for me to snatch. My parents exchanged uneasy glances, convinced Mabel had lost her mind from shock. Mabel, calm down. I can't calm down. Mabel lunged at my mother, gripping her arms. Quick, call Lyra back. Make her take that box away. Hurry, or my Felix will die. My mom was so freaked out by her hysterics that she had no choice but to call me over the phone. My mother stammered as she relayed Auntie's words. Lyra, your aunt insists that box is cursed and demands you take it back. I jumped in fright. I was pulling overtime at the office, putting finishing touches on the design draft. When are you coming back? Mom, I'm swamped with work. No time. Lyra, Mom snapped urgently. This is an emergency. Your cousin's dying. Your aunt's lost her mind. Can't you just come home? We're still family. Family, those 3 words again. In my past life, it was these very words that left me dying of sorrow. Mom, I said calmly. Auntie snatched the box herself. I didn't give it to her, since she grabbed her own fortune. Let her live with the consequences. How can you be so heartless? Cold-blooded. I chuckled. I stretched. Design draft complete. Flawless. Sent it to my supervisor, who instantly replied with an okay emoji. Shut down the computer, clocking out. Auntie, you haven't seen anything yet. Your greed deserves far worse retribution than this. Neither you nor your precious son Felix will escape this. Discard 8. I just smiled. I left my parents speechless. I hung up the phone, and peace finally descended. But Mabel wasn't having any peace. When she couldn't find me at my parents' place, she made a scene at my rented apartment. I've no idea how she got hold of my address. She was blocking the stairwell exit where I clock out. Lyra, you little bitch, finally showing your face, greasy-haired and red-eyed. She'd visibly wasted away, gripping the banister as she rasped her accusations. She clutched the ebony box tightly in her hands. Take this thing back. She rushed over, trying to shove the box into my arms. I took a step back, dodging her. Auntie, you're the one who prayed for that medical report. You're the one who failed to watch Felix's medication. And you're the one who snatched this box away, now that you're down on your luck. You blame the box. Why didn't you say anything when your son landed that government job? Mabel was at a loss for words. That's just how she is, always taking credit for successes but blaming others for failures. Cut the crap. Mabel's face contorted with rage. I'm giving this back to you today. It's yours. Your grandmother left it for you. She shrieked and hurled the black wooden box straight at my face. I let the box hit my shoulder with a thud before it clattered to the floor. The box burst open upon impact. There's absolutely nothing inside. No gold bars, no deeds, not even a scrap of paper, just an empty box. Mabel froze in shock. This was probably her first time opening this box. The treasure she imagined was empty. How can it be empty? She murmured to herself. Auntie, I spoke up. You took it by force. You smashed mine. No, you pick it up. Mabel shuddered. She stared at the empty box on the floor, its gaping black maw facing her. Suddenly, understanding dawned on her. She couldn't leave this thing lying around. She had to hold on to it. Mabel trembled like a leaf, bending over as she shakily closed the empty box with its lid and clutched it to her chest again. Lyra, I'm begging you, she sobbed. Auntie was wrong. Take it back. Please take it back. I'll give you money. Too late. I stepped around her, went upstairs, opened the door, and shut it behind me. Only Mabel's desperate wails remained echoing in the hallway. Scene 9 cut. Mabel wept in the hallway until midnight. The neighbors called the police, and they took her away. The next day, she showed up again. She stopped making a scene, just sat on my doorstep clutching that box like a ghost. She followed me to work. She was waiting at my office door when I got off work. Lyra, have mercy. Lyra, you heartless creature. She sounded like a broken record. I've had enough. I canceled the lease right in front of her at the agency. I used this month's bonus and savings to move to a more distant neighborhood with better security. I changed my phone number. I vanished completely from her world. When Mabel couldn't find me, she went straight to my parents. Big bro, sis-in-law, where are you hiding? Lyra, tell her to get out here now. My parents were at their wits' end with her pestering. Mabel, what's wrong with that box? It's just an empty container, isn't it? Why are you making such a fuss? My mom still didn't get it. Empty. Mabel let out a hollow laugh, more grimace than grin. That's a death trap. You don't understand. None of you understand. Mabel thrust the box into my father's hands. You're Lyra's father. You take it. My father recoiled as if the box had burned him. No, don't give it to me. You're all forcing me. Mabel clutched the box and stumbled away. She went home. The house felt bitterly cold. Felix was discharged from the hospital, but the lingering effects were obvious. His hands trembled. He walked with a limp, and sometimes he'd stare blankly at one spot, while grinning foolishly for ages. The doctor said it was drug-induced nerve damage with slim chances of recovery. Mom, I'm hungry. Felix sat on the couch, drooling and mumbling indistinctly. Mabel stared at her golden boy son who'd been reduced to this state. The last thread holding her together snapped. She grabbed the black wooden box. It's all your fault. You're the one who ruined my son. She hurled the box onto the ground. The box bounced once, completely unharmed. She picked it up again and scalded it with boiling water. The black lacquer on the box's surface didn't chip at all. She eventually tossed the box into the neighborhood trash bin, discarded for good. She rushed home and hugged Felix joyfully. Son, Mom got rid of that curse thing. You'll get better. Mabel opened the door, ready to go buy breakfast. That dark wooden box lay quietly on her doormat. Identical contagion. Mabel had a breakdown. She realized she couldn't get rid of this box. She buried it in the park, only to find it reappeared in the rice bin. The next day, no matter how many times she threw it into the river, it would always reappear by Felix's pillow the next day. The box had chosen her, and there was no shaking it off. She finally resigned herself to her fate. She locked the box in a safe and sealed it with a talisman. She thought this would lock away misfortune, but misfortune flows like water. It began spreading from Mabel to those closest to her second uncle. My good-natured uncle who never lost his temper his whole life while working at the construction site that day. The safety harness buckle accidentally failed as he was fastening it. He didn't notice at all. He missed his footing and fell from the third-floor scaffolding, broke his leg and 3 ribs. The foreman at the construction site was a distant relative of Auntie Air. Instead of calling an ambulance, he dragged Uncle Air back to the dormitory first. Stanley, tough it out, just minor injuries. Afraid of compensation costs, the foreman delayed for half a day before finally sending him to the hospital. Uncle's leg missed the optimal treatment window. He became lame. One leg was 3 centimeters shorter than the other. Aunt Mabel received the diagnosis at the hospital without crying or making a scene. She was completely numb. After paying, she wheeled her uncle back to their dilapidated home. Felix kept grinning foolishly. The uncle hung his head in silence. Mabel stared at the 2 men. One had lost his wits, the other his legs. Suddenly, she laughed. Karma, karma, she laughed until tears streamed down her face. She's now the sole breadwinner of the family. She has to work outside to support the household. My life keeps getting better. I switched jobs and landed a position at a bigger company. My direct supervisor really appreciates me, and my creative ideas never fail to surprise him. All the brilliance that was suppressed by misfortune in my past life has come flooding back. I got promoted and became the lead designer of our team. With my year-end bonus, I rented a sunny south-facing studio near the office, sunshine and a balcony. I bought lots of flowers to decorate the balcony beautifully. On weekends, I bask in the sun with my cat and a cup of coffee. I thought I'd never have anything to do with the Luo family again in this lifetime, until my parents showed up at my door. They tracked down my new address just to check in on me. Lyra dear, you're doing so well for yourself now. My mother's eyes couldn't take it all in the moment she stepped inside. She ran her fingers over my couch and peeked into my fridge. TSK, what a waste for one person to live in such a big house. My father nodded in agreement. Lyra, it's not safe for a young woman to live alone out here. Wouldn't you consider moving back home? Their faces wore that all too familiar expression, equal parts greed and entitlement. Going home, I chuckled bitterly. Which home? The one Auntie Air took over ages ago. Lyra, watch your tone. She's not just your aunt, her family's going through some troubles. What do their problems have to do with me? I poured them 2 glasses of water, plain tap water. Mom, Dad, just say what's on your mind. You didn't come all this way just to compliment my place, did you? My mother wrung her hands before finally speaking up. Lyra, you've really made something of yourself now. Your uncle, he broke his leg working at the construction site, and the compensation wasn't much. Your cousin, he's got mental issues now, needs medication every day. Your aunt's barely holding it together by herself. After all, she's your aunt. We were thinking, since we're family, could you lend her a hand? I looked at my mother. What kind of help? You're a team leader now, must be making good money. How about sending your aunt some cash each month? 3,000, no, 2, just 2,000. Consider it fulfilling your filial duty to Grandma. Laughing out loud. Filial piety on Grandma's behalf. You want me to pay for the aunt who stole my misfortune? Mom, you're quite the schemer. Lyra, my father slammed the table. How could you be so ungrateful? No matter how unreasonable Mabel is, she's still your elder. She expects me to support her, her son, and her husband financially, I said, standing up and glaring at them. In my past life, when they drove me to desperation and I was starving, where were these so-called elders? 12 autophagy. My parents were stunned by the look in my eyes. They never expected their timid daughter to dare stand up to them like this. I swung the door open. Get out before I call the cops. They slunk away in disgrace. My parents' blood-sucking scheme failed, which was the final nail in Aunt Mabel's coffin. She was completely broke. Uncle's medicine costs money. Felix's medicine costs money. Rent and utilities all cost money. She started selling off her belongings. She sold everything in the house, valuable or worthless. Finally, her eyes fell on the safe that held the ebony box. She sold the safe to a scrap collector. Master, this thing's heavy. Here's $50. Haul it away quick. The scrap dealer happily carted it off. Mabel pocketed the $50. She thought she'd finally gotten rid of that high-maintenance troublemaker. She took the money and bought Felix 2 steamed pork buns. She herself nibbled on stale bread. She returned home in the evening. Uncle groaned in bed while Felix chuckled on the couch. She stepped into the kitchen to boil water. She opened the rice bin. A pitch-black wooden box lay quietly at the bottom of the rice bin. It still bore traces of rust from the scrapyard. Mabel let out a piercing scream. She grabbed a kitchen knife and hacked wildly at the box. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. The blade struck the wooden box with a shower of sparks. Not even a scratch marred the box's surface. The cleaver's edge curled inward instead. Mabel dropped the cleaver, collapsing to her knees in racking sobs. She's no match for it. She'll never be rid of this thing in her lifetime. She stopped eating and sleeping. She started talking to that box. What do you want from me? I've got nothing left. I'll give you everything. She poured Felix's medicine onto the box. She scattered Uncle's painkillers across the box. Finally, she grabbed a handful of rice and sprinkled it over the box. Eat, go on, devour us all. Completely lost his mind. Second Uncle's leg was permanently crippled when we couldn't afford follow-up treatments. Now that grown man lies bedridden, Felix's illness fluctuates between better and worse. During his lucid moments, he'd clutch his head and sob, asking his mother, Mom, how did I end up like this? When his madness takes over, he smashes things and lashes out at people. He struck Mabel. It's all your fault, you crazy woman. You ruined me. Mabel was beaten black and blue by her beloved son. She didn't fight back, just clutched that black wooden box and chuckled. This family is completely destroyed. The landlord came to collect rent, took one look at the scene inside, and recoiled in horror. 7. I'm done renting to you. Get out, pack your things and leave now. Mabel couldn't come up with the money. They were thrown out, a family of 3, a cripple, a simpleton, and a madman. Their entire worldly possessions consisted of a broken wheelchair and a few tattered garments, and one black wooden box. They had nowhere to go. They returned to the Luo family ancestral home, the place where my parents live. Brother, sister-in-law, help me. Mabel dropped to her knees with a thud before my parents. I'm inhuman. I've wronged you. Please, take us in. My family of 3 will starve on the streets otherwise. She clung desperately to that box in her arms. My parents' hearts softened, or perhaps they were frightened. They were afraid Mabel might die at their doorstep. Bad luck. Come in. Mabel and her family of 3 moved back into my old tiny room, the very room she'd originally intended as Felix's study. How perceptive. Mabel ran her fingers along the wall and smiled. Felix, you've moved in after all. Felix grinned foolishly, drooling slightly as he mirrored her smile. After Auntie's family moved in, my parents' ordeal began. Uncle required constant attention. Felix needs to be fed. Mabel placed that black wooden box right in the center of my parents' living room. Elder brother and sister-in-law. This treasure belongs to our Luo family. I shouldn't be the only one keeping it. This blessing is meant for all of us. She forced my parents to kowtow to that box every single day. My parents refused. Mabel went berserk. No bowing. You think you can dump all your bad luck on me? Not a chance. She got up in the dead of night, grabbed a kitchen knife, and started chopping outside my parents' bedroom door. Thud, thud. My parents were scared out of their wits. They began kowtowing frantically. Their bad luck streak has begun. My dad got hit by a bicycle when he went out. My mom cut her finger while cooking. Our TV blew up and the water heater broke down. In just 1 month, my parents aged 10 years. They finally reached their breaking point. They called me. Lyra, save us. Your aunt has lost her mind. She's trying to kill us. I glanced at my freshly done nails and said calmly, that's your so-called family, the ones you yourselves invited home. I heard something happened at the old house. My parents were completely dumbfounded. The neighbors called the police, saying the old house had been silent for days, but a foul smell kept drifting out. The cops kicked the door down. My parents, second uncle, and Felix were all lying unconscious on the floor. Carbon monoxide poisoning. All 4 had stopped breathing. The only living thing left in the house was Mabel. She sat alone in the center of the living room, cradling the black wooden box. She hummed a nursery rhyme. Sleep now, sleep, my precious darling. She flashed the charging officers a chilling smile. Mabel was taken away. The evaluation concluded she'd been insane all along. She didn't turn on the gas. It was the aging pipes that leaked on their own. An accident that claimed the lives of the entire Luo family. As the only immediate family member, I handled the funeral arrangements. Oh, I bought each of them 5 a small urn. I buried them together. The police asked me how to handle the black wooden box found in Mabel's arms. Is this evidence? I asked. No, just an ordinary old wooden box. Then toss it, I said. Got it. I stood before the graveyard, staring at 5 tombstones lined in a row. In my Past life, I died alone in a rented room. Not a single soul came to claim my body this time. I'm the one standing here while they all lie beneath. I neither wept nor smiled. I just thought. The sky was so blue. The breeze was gentle. I turned and headed down the mountain. It's my new boyfriend. He asked me out to the movies tonight. Lyra, I've got the popcorn ready. Hurry up. Be right there. I hung up and took a deep breath. The air carried the fresh scent of grass. I'm no longer the Luo family's scapegoat. I'm just Lyra. Story 2. I'm a living lucky charm. Anyone close to me gets blessed with fortune, turning peril into safety and attracting wealth effortlessly. My sister's a walking jinx. Spend too much time with her and her bad luck rubs off on you. In my past life, I married my childhood sweetheart whom I'd secretly loved for years. On our wedding day, Stanley's cancer miraculously vanished without treatment. 2 weeks later, his rival died suddenly, and he naturally became the sole heir. On the day he inherited the Stanley family, he pushed me off the skyscraper. Lucky, it's all because you stole Mina's golden koi status and made her suffer endless scorn. You even forced her to marry a hoodlum. In despair, she jumped to her death while pregnant. Now you'll pay for it. I fell from a great height but survived. Left in a vegetative state, he abandoned me at the hospital, hiring a pimp to sell my body. Fully conscious yet trapped, I felt countless violations upon my flesh. Powerless to move, I could only endure the humiliations forced upon me. After struggling for over a year, I miraculously regained consciousness, but Stanley drove me out of City A and blacklisted me completely. I ended up homeless, with no one daring to help me, and eventually starved to death on a freezing rainy night. When my biological parents heard the news, they said it served me right. That a scheming witch like me who'd stop at nothing to get her way deserved to die 1,000 deaths after my rebirth. I found myself back on the day Stanley proposed. I quickly withdrew my hand. Stanley, you're mistaken. My sister Mina is the one with the koi fish fortune. Everyone present was utterly shocked. Stanley's mother Hilda anxiously asked, weren't you the one with the koi fish fortune according to the master? How did it become your sister? I sighed and lowered my head. It's all a misunderstanding. My sister's the real lucky charm. The fortune teller thought I was the only daughter in our family, so he assumed it was me. But he didn't know my father had a secret love child. She was brought home just the day before he declared me the lucky one. Hilda and her son exchanged glances, then immediately called my parents over. Half an hour later, my parents arrived with Mina in tow. After hearing what happened, Mom and Dad let out a sigh, putting on an awkward tone. They said, it's our fault. She's been our only daughter from the start, and we've spoiled her rotten since she was little. We've turned her into this entitled brat, always bullying her younger sister and snatching her things. At this point, they shot me a cold glance, signaling me to keep my mouth shut. They didn't spell it out clearly, but the implication was obvious. They acknowledged I'd stolen Mina's lucky destiny. Stanley's initially puzzled expression gradually hardened into resolve. No wonder I got diagnosed with cancer when I was with Lucky. And my body would feel awful whenever I got close to her, but being near Mina always made me feel at ease, physically comfortable too, so it was Lucky who stole Mina's good fortune all along. Mom, Dad, I want to marry Mina. Please give us your blessing, Stanley exclaimed excitedly before breaking into uncontrollable coughs. Hilda patted his back anxiously. Stanley, calm down, everything's out in the open now. Mina's the one with the golden destiny, Lucky's the jinxed one. There's no need to rush. Coughing until his face turned crimson, Stanley's burning gaze pierced through the crowd and settled on Mina. All this time, I've been loving the wrong person. Only today did I realize Mina is the one I should love. Holding the diamond ring meant for me, he pushed through the crowd and slowly knelt before Mina. Mina, will you marry me? With tears of joy streaming down her face, Mina reached out and placed her hand in Stanley's palm before the cheering crowd. Stanley grinned excitedly as he slipped the ring onto her finger. The entire room erupted in cheers. The crowd was so exhilarated that they completely forgot what had just happened. I stood coldly aside, watching their jubilant celebration. In my past life, if it weren't for my lucky charm aura, how could Stanley have turned danger into safety and miraculously recovered? How could his rival have dropped dead so abruptly? Now that I'm gone, let's see how he survives and becomes the sole heir of the Stanley family. As for my parents, since they favor their illegitimate daughter so much, they'll get exactly what they deserve. We'll see if they can hold on to their precious wealth and status in the years to come. I turned and walked away, leaving all the excitement to them. As I reached the parking lot, Stanley came panting up behind me. Why are you just giving up like this? Have you really abandoned the idea of marrying me completely? Didn't you used to like me best? I coldly pulled open the car door. The agony from my past life still haunts me. If I still have feelings for him, I must be a damn fool for love. Stanley, you just got engaged. You should go back and celebrate properly with everyone. Besides, you're in such poor health. If something really happens, I don't want to be held responsible. Stanley coughed a few times, looking at me with a strange expression. Lucky, you must have been reborn too. Otherwise, how could you give up so decisively? He knew I'd had a crush on him for years. There's no way I'd give up that easily. That's exactly why he was so sure I couldn't live Without him, I scoffed. Since you already know, why bother asking me and wasting your breath? In my past life, he ruined me completely. I died from his torture. The stronger my will to live, the more cruelly he tormented me. Stanley stared at me quietly, as if deep in thought, but within seconds, he was seized by violent coughing again. It took him a long while to finally calm down. Just let Mina go and stop hurting her. And I won't harm you either. I bent down and slid into the driver's seat. Just as I was about to close the door, I heard him say, "If you still want to come back to me, I can buy you a house, but I can't give you any commitment. Mina will be my only wife in this lifetime. She's the only one worthy of that title." What he meant was graciously offering me the chance to be his mistress. No thanks. May you live happily together for 100 years, inseparable through all lifetimes. With that, I started the engine and sped away. Before I'd gone far, I heard Stanley shout, "It's good you think that way, but if you scheme behind our backs, coveting what isn't yours, I'll make you regret ever crossing me." When I got home, my parents had already returned from their celebration. The joy hadn't faded from their faces yet, but the moment they saw me, their expressions turned icy. Dad threw down what he was holding and scolded sharply. "So you finally decided to come home. Clearly we've spoiled you rotten. How dare you act so entitled that you'd even try to steal your own sister's fiancé. At least you came to your senses today before things went too far. To make it up to your sister, bring me your grandmother's bracelet. I'm adding it to Mina's dowry." I glanced at Mom. Her eyes were fixed on Dad, not even sparing me a look. This bracelet was Grandma's keepsake, her final gift to me. "I can't give it away, too." Before I could finish, Dad slapped me hard across the face, leaving my cheeks swollen instantly. "You're giving it today whether you like it or not. This is what you owe Mina." Dad started barging into my room to search for the bracelet as he spoke. I rushed to stop him, but Mom suddenly grabbed me, pinned my arms, and kept dragging me backward. "Mom, that was Grandma's keepsake. What's the big deal about heirlooms? If Mina likes it, just give it to her." I stared at my unreasonable mother, feeling a surge of anger well up inside me. Before long, Dad managed to dig out the bracelet. He gleefully took it to give to Mina. Only after Dad left did Mom finally let go of me. A chill ran through my heart as I looked at her with nothing but disappointment. "Mom, I'm your own flesh and blood. Why would you treat me this way? Even if I were reborn, I still wouldn't understand my mother's actions. They harmed me because they had ulterior motives." "What about Mom? I'm her only biological daughter." Yet in her eyes, I'll never measure up to Dad's illegitimate daughter. With tears in her eyes, Mom looked at me guiltily. "I'm sorry, UN, but I love your father, so I must love what he loves. What your father loves, I love. Though you're my daughter, he doesn't like you. UN, why don't you just disappear? Stop ruining our lives." Hearing these words from my own mother cut deeper than any knife ever could. In the following days, they took my phone away. They locked me indoors, cutting off all possible contact with the outside world. All this just so Stanley and Mina could prepare for their wedding without distractions. The fridge was nearly empty, with barely enough food for one day. I was starving, reduced to drinking water to stave off the hunger. The temperature dropped sharply, and without a proper quilt on my bed, I shivered uncontrollably at night, often waking up from the cold. Starvation became a real threat as I struggled for basic sustenance. Soon enough, I fell ill, delirious with fever. I hovered between life and death. The soft-hearted guard secretly called my parents to inform them about my situation, but all they said coldly was, "Lucky is spoiled rotten and has a terrible temper. She needs to be taught a proper lesson." That only emboldened the others to act even more recklessly. The servants barged into my room and took away my clothes and jewelry. My pleading hand clutched at their sleeves, begging them to take me to a doctor, or at least give me a bite to eat. But the servant brutally slapped my hand away. "You worthless bastard. We're here on your parents' orders. No food, no doctors. They want you to suffer. Are you trying to get us fired?" Begging won't help. Your parents said you brought this on yourself. They wouldn't care even if you died. I clenched my fists, knowing full well how biased my parents were, but I never imagined they could be this unfair. In the struggle, they dragged me off the bed and I crashed hard onto the floor. As I lifted my head, I heard the woman's derisive snicker of looking up. I saw Mina draped over Stanley like liquid silk, her innocent face wearing a mocking smirk. "Sis, I know you're bitter about not being able to marry Stanley, but taking it out on the servants is beneath you." Stanley frowned at me, his gaze dripping with disdain. "Lucky, no amount of your theatrics will make me love you. My heart belongs to Mina. Your parents are right. A vicious, domineering shrew like you isn't fit to lick Mina's boots. I'm actually the victim here, but in their eyes, I'm always the one at fault and deserving of this. Mom and Dad will always favor Mina over me. They don't love me at all, yet they shamelessly label Me as a spoiled, arrogant brat, they can't even be fair. Where would they get the indulgence to spoil me rotten? Mina came up to me and suddenly burst into tears. Sister, whether you're angry or hate me, just take it out on me. Why must you hurt these innocent people? Yet she leaned in close and whispered in a voice only we could hear. Oh, sister, everyone around you adores me. Our parents despise you. Your fiancé loathes you. Even your koi fish destiny was stolen by me. Even these lowly servants bully you. You're such a failure. If I were you, I'd have ended my life long ago. With that, she viciously sank her teeth into my ear, tearing off a chunk of flesh. The pain sent cold sweat pouring down my body as I let out an involuntary scream. Mina staggered backward, covering her mouth while sobbing uncontrollably. Sis, she attacked me with her ears. She hates me. Blood kept gushing from my ears. My already frail body now turning ghostly pale, Stanley scooped up the trembling Mina in haste, his eyes burning with pure loathing when they met mine. Lucky, I warned you never to hurt Mina. How dare you harm her right before my eyes? I can only imagine what you've done to her before. I revealed my mangled ear that was still bleeding profusely. Are you blind? Can't you see what she's done to my ear? Stanley backhanded me so hard my face swelled up. Mina's kind-hearted. She'd never do such a thing. You obviously did this to yourself to frame her. Did you really think I wouldn't? Notice, ignoring his frail, sickly condition, he carried Mina away unharmed. Before leaving, he instructed the servants to give me a thorough beating. They kicked and punched me until I was covered in bruises, with several patches of skin torn open. Already gravely ill, how could I possibly endure such a savage beating? He was knocked out cold instantly when he came to. His whole body was burning up. The fever left him in a dazed stupor. A servant approached, clutching a fruit knife, muttering to himself, Miss Sue, don't blame me. It's your dear sister's orders to ruin that pretty face of yours so she'll shine brighter on her wedding day. I felt the blade slicing through my skin, but my body wouldn't obey me, leaving me helpless against his cruelty. Warm liquid trickled down my face. After what felt like an eternity of darkness, I woke to see my parents' faces. They wrinkled their noses in disgust and turned their faces away. Turns out the wound on my face had become infected, emitting a foul odor. My mother looked at me with nothing but contempt, while my father immediately started scolding. Lucky, Mina is about to marry Stanley. Why would you still hurt her? How could you be so cruel? What an ungrateful wretch, always scheming against your own sister. He's blind as a bat, completely ignoring my battered body and disfigured face. All he sees are Mina's crocodile tears. From this day forward, you're no longer part of the Sue family, nor are you my daughter. With that, the disownment papers were flung straight at my face. Mother spoke with undisguised contempt. Had I known you'd never win your father's favor, I should have sent you to join your grandmother sooner. Anything your father rejects doesn't deserve to live. So it was mother who killed grandmother. I'd always sensed something suspicious about grandmother's death, but never once suspected mother. Mom's definitely a hopeless romantic when it comes to dad. She orbits around him like a satellite, hating whatever he dislikes, but that's her own mother we're talking about. I tried turning over in agitation, only to tumble right off the bed. I was desperate to ask her for the truth, but they didn't even glance my way before walking off. The merciless figure walking away severed the last thread of our blood ties. 3. Cast out from the family, I lay sprawled on the ground like a beaten dog. After what felt like an eternity, Stanley arrived. He stared down at me with cold indifference, not a trace of pity in his eyes. Lucky, don't blame me. Only when you're completely powerless can you stop threatening Mrs. Mina's position, I said weakly. So ruining my face, making my parents disown me. It was all you're doing, wasn't it? This is your punishment to teach you to abandon your wicked schemes. Besides, being disowned leaves you with no one to rely on. Now that you have nothing, you'll be more content staying as my mistress. You've lost any means to bully Mina. From now on, serve us well, and I might just keep you for life, I scoffed, looking for a side piece right after proposing. Aren't you worried Mina might do something drastic? Mina isn't petty like you. She's the kindest soul, would never bully you or kick you out. Besides, where would you even go if I didn't take you in? You've got nowhere. No one wants you. And let's be real, you'd probably off yourself without me, wouldn't you, since you love me so much? God knows where Stanley got the delusion that I still have feelings for him. But he was right about one thing, nobody wants me anymore. Today, my parents didn't just cut ties with me, they went to the media, claiming I lead a promiscuous life, sleep around with different men, and have had over 20 abortions. My first ever smear campaign came from my own flesh and blood. Overnight, my reputation was in ruins, and everyone said I deserved it. These days, being called lucky cuts deeper than any slut-shaming. The internet is flooded with vicious insults against me. No one's willing to take me in, but I'm not completely without Options: Victor, Stanley's sworn rival, business competitor, and half-brother. He took me in, had a doctor treat my wounds, and gave me a fever-reducing shot. My face gradually started healing. Why are you still willing to accept me? Stanley's an idiot, but I'm not. After interacting with you briefly, I took a chance and hit the jackpot. Stanley got sick because he kept hanging around Mina every day. He couldn't tell right from wrong and blamed it all on you, but how could I not know better? Yeah, Stanley's a complete idiot. He never realized his cancer only showed slight improvement when he was with me, but look what I've become now. That's the fault of whoever hurt you, not yours. Besides, I can cure you, if you'll have me. I want to make you my wife. It seems I had no other choice, so I agreed to Victor's proposal. Victor arranged the best doctors for me and stocked up on nutritional supplements. Within a month, I fully recovered and even put on some healthy weight after regaining my health. He took me to get our marriage license. Staring at the freshly printed marriage certificate, I still felt a bit dazed. Never thought I'd actually get married just like that. Just then, Stanley called. Lucky, where are you? I bought the house. You can move in right away. I'll come see you when I have time. A mocking smile curled at my lips. Sorry, I'm married. Lucky, are you kidding me? Stanley's voice grew impatient on the other end of the line. Keep this up and I'm done with you. He actually thinks that could intimidate me. With that, I hung up the phone. Victor raised an eyebrow at me, not letting me have a word with my dear brother. No rush. We've got all the time in the world. Victor gave me a gentle smile. His warm smile softened even the harsh sunlight, but I turned away. After Stanley, I'd sworn off emotional entanglements with any man. Later, Stanley called several more times, but I kept hanging up on him. His text message arrived right after. Lucky, don't be such a drama queen. Watch out or I'll dump you, and no amount of begging will bring me back. I forwarded the text to Mina. Her man, her responsibility. If she can't handle him, that's on her. It wasn't long before Stanley called again. The moment the call connected, he roared furiously. Lucky, you vicious woman. We're not even married yet and you're already provoking Mina, bullying her. Fine, just perfect. Since you've ignored my warning, you can forget about being with me in this lifetime. A woman's muffled sobs could be heard through the phone. No need to guess. Mina must have exaggerated how I supposedly provoked and humiliated her, making him lose control of his emotions. She would never tolerate another woman sharing her husband. Only that fool Stanley would believe Mina is magnanimous enough to overlook such things. If she truly loved him, how could she willingly share her beloved with another woman? Victor heard his furious roar and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Hearing there were other men around me, Stanley's voice tensed up. Who are you with? I told you I'm married. Obviously I'm with my husband. Stanley, let's just stop contacting each other. After hanging up, I immediately blocked Stanley. Victor chuckled. Seems like my brother's got a few screws loose. I let out a bitter laugh. That's exactly how it is to this day. I still can't fathom what I ever saw in him. Victor's words hung unfinished as his phone suddenly rang. After just a few words, his face lit up with surprise. Hanging up the phone, he turned to me excitedly. UN, we did it. The investors who'd been on the fence finally signed the contract with us just now. Judging by Victor's tone, this must be a major client, and an incredibly important one at that. I smiled. Congratulations. I knew it was your lucky charm that helped me. I'd almost given up, but we actually pulled it off. UN. Thank you. I froze for a moment. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened with Stanley. A flower pot suddenly crashed right where Stanley had been standing moments before, but fortunately he just stepped away. He made a mistake at work, but ironically that exact error was what prevented greater losses. Yet Stanley insisted it was all thanks to Mina, perhaps because they were already together by then. Don't mention it. This is the fruit of your labor. I can't take credit. Who knows if this lucky streak will last a lifetime. This isn't the foundation Victor and I built our lives upon. After learning about my marriage, Stanley searched for me all over the world. He looked absolutely deranged, as if I'd betrayed him and he was out for revenge. Thankfully Victor kept me well protected. Stanley couldn't lay a finger on me. I'd changed my phone number long ago and abandoned all my social media accounts. I don't feel the slightest attachment to those people. I want to start a brand new life, one without these terrible people, though I resent them deep down. I believe karma will catch up with them eventually. What's more, they've got Mina by their side, their so-called lucky charm who's actually a walking jinx. But little did I know, days later my only friend would casually mention something to me. Ever since you disappeared, Stanley's been acting like a madman, hunting down everyone you know. People actually thought you might have done something drastic. He's married to Mina now. What the hell is he doing chasing after you? Talk about being a glutton for punishment. For I chuckled and told her about Stanley's offer to be my sugar daddy. She was absolutely livid, ranting for ages before finally capping it off with, that bastard. Don't worry, I'll never reveal your whereabouts, but your parents keep smearing you on social media, claiming you ran off with some random guy. How could they do this to you? Nothing they do would surprise me at this point. Just like Mom always said, being unloved is the original sin. Jenny, my grandmother, passed away at your family's hospital. There's something I need your help investigating. In the first fortnight of marriage, Victor rode a wave of success, gaining strong support from many board members. He secured numerous projects, bringing immense contributions to the conglomerate. His growing prestige within the company began eclipsing Stanley's influence. Stanley couldn't get anything right during this period, repeatedly angering the old patriarch. His health wasn't great either. Those old chronic conditions were quietly flaring up again. I heard all this straight from Victor's mouth. What if Stanley planted these rumors to mislead you? Truth be told, I don't completely buy into all that destiny and constitution mumbo-jumbo. Perhaps it's just fate playing tricks on us, making us believe it was all real, but that couldn't be further from the truth. If I were truly born under a lucky star, why would life treat me so harshly? The real unsung heroes are those around me. Yet they credit Mina with all the success, but looking at it another way, at least I got a second chance to change my fate. Victor kissed my forehead. Then I'm confident I can keep him down for good. After a long pause, I voiced my concerns. What if one day, I can't help you anymore? Could Victor be the next Stanley? Then you're my lawful wife too. He held me in his arms, his warm chest instantly melting away my worries. I felt completely at ease and drifted off to sleep without realizing it. When I woke up, Victor had already left. On a whim, I decided to cook, thinking it'd be a small way to repay him, but I got careless and ended up cutting my hand. When Victor heard, he immediately sent bodyguards to escort me to the hospital. I thought it was an overreaction at first, but at the hospital, I was diagnosed as pregnant. Holding the pregnancy test results, I was overwhelmed with emotion. After 2 lifetimes, this is my first time becoming a mother. When I looked up, I saw Mina and Stanley standing there. Stanley looked unwell, his sickly pallor making him appear even more frail. The moment he spotted me, he rushed over excitedly despite his frail condition. Lucky, where the hell have you been hiding? I know this is your play hard to get game, but you've taken it way too far this time. He lunged to grab me, only to be blocked by bodyguards. He shot me a stunned look before suppressing his rage. Enough games. Lucky, come home with me now, sis. We've been so worried since you left. Even if you can't stand me, you shouldn't be this reckless. What if something happened? Do you know how anxious you're making everyone? Mina's words dripped with venom, her face contorted by barely contained fury. Go back with you, I scoffed. To do what? Become your kept woman. Raising my voice deliberately, I continued. Stanley, you dumped me to marry my sister. Why won't you let me go? Must I really become your mistress and join your twisted threesome before you're satisfied? That remark was absolutely scandalous, drawing curious onlookers like moths to a flame. Stanley noticed the stares and cleared his throat violently. What nonsense are you spouting? Weren't these your exact words? That Mina isn't petty. She'd tolerate you keeping me as your mistress, while you made me wait until after your wedding. What do you call that if not a threesome? Stanley, I'm married now. Do us both a favor and get lost. With that, I turned to leave. Stanley tried to stop me but was held back by the bodyguards. He gritted his teeth. Lucky. If you keep acting up like this, I'll have to let you go, I scoffed. That's exactly what I want. As I was leaving, Mina feigned surprise at the report in my hand. Oh my god, sis, you're pregnant. Who's the father? Stanley froze, then snapped out of it and started interrogating me frantically. How could you possibly be pregnant? Who dared to touch you? Whose child is this? Lucky, you said you loved me most. How could you betray me like this? He looked like a pitiful cuckold, reeling from a woman's betrayal. Stanley, I never agreed to be your mistress. What betrayal are you even talking about? Besides, I'm married. What's wrong with me being pregnant? Don't harass me again. Stanley shouted in disbelief. No way. You loved me so much. We were even married in our past life. How could you possibly leave me for someone else? I rolled my eyes. So he remembered our past life too, after what he put me through last time. How dare he assume I'd still love him? I'm not some masochist. For heaven's sake, even after he tortured me to death, my devotion to him remained unshaken. I'm not that pathetic. Sis, even if you dislike or despise me, you can't do this. Marrying some random man. How heartbroken would Stanley be? As she spoke, Mina's eyes welled up with tears. Sis, you're acting so cheap. What's the difference between you and those streetwalkers? So according to that logic, refusing to be Stanley's mistress makes me no better than a prostitute, I scoffed. Seems you're quite eager to pimp out your own husband. Go ahead, find him 800 mistresses if Stanley can handle it. Count me out. I've got my own man and zero interest in sister wives. And stop calling me sis. We're done. Your fake sweetness turns my stomach. With Stanley and my parents always having my back, I'd never spoken to her like this before, because the moment I stepped out of line, both my parents and Stanley would come down on me hard. Mina's expression darkened, yet she still maintained that pitiful facade. Sis, I was just worried about you being out there alone. Before she could even finish, tears started rolling down her cheeks. The moment Stanley saw her tears, his heart ached with pity, and his face hardened with anger and determination. Lucky, you've gone too far. Mina only has your best interests at heart, yet you treat her like this. Get on your knees, kowtow, and apologize to Mina. I used to think you just had bad eyesight, now I believe you need your head examined too. With those words, I turned and walked away. Stanley tried to catch up with me, shouting, "Wait, you still owe Mina a kneeling apology." I ignored him. My bodyguards would handle the aftermath. Stanley couldn't reach me and yelled at my retreating figure, "Lucky, take one more step and I'll never see you again." What a pathetic threat, utterly ineffective against me. After getting home, I told Victor about the pregnancy, and he was overjoyed. 5, but when he learned Stanley had been harassing me, he gave me a thorough check to make sure I was unharmed before finally relaxing. "Don't worry, I'll deal with those bullies immediately and restore your reputation." No one had ever stood up for me before. I'd long been forced to pretend I didn't care about superficial reputations. Over time, I couldn't even tell if I truly didn't care or just lacked the power to clear my name. What tests did Stanley get at the hospital today? He looks even paler than before. His cancer has relapsed, and it's quite severe, though he's trying hard to keep it under wraps. Truth has a way of coming out. I'm not surprised by this at all. He was seriously ill to begin with, but miraculously recovered right after we got married. But he always believed it was because of Mina. If he's so convinced Mina's his lucky charm, let them be stuck with each other forever. And one more thing, Victor stared straight at me. "Your father's been in a car accident. It's serious. They're considering amputation." A car accident? How did it happen? Your father was negotiating a business deal that day. It fell through and he had a huge argument with the other party. Then he drank some alcohol and got into the crash. Mina was in the car too, but she came out completely unharmed. I nodded. "So that's what happened." "Yeah, your mom's been having terrible luck lately. She got into gambling, lost a fortune, and got beaten by your father. Before she could even leave the hospital, she heard her husband got hospitalized. Now she's wearing herself out taking care of him, not eating or drinking properly. I've known since childhood that my mom is a hopeless romantic. She seems to have no life of her own, just orbiting around my father. She'd do anything to keep him happy. In her eyes, only dad matters. Everyone else is expendable, even her own mother and daughter. I can't comprehend her twisted love, but one thing's certain, she won't change a thing. Even knowing it's wrong, she'd follow her father's path to the bitter end. No matter what wrong she commits, it's all justified in her mind. If it's for her father, that was their own choice. After the father's accident, the family business faced a financial crisis, with many investors wanting to pull out. Despite their desperate pleas, business is business. It's not charity. They had no choice but to turn to Mina and Stanley for help. Stanley agreed to assist, but only if the family business was handed over to him. Otherwise, bankruptcy was inevitable. Even Mina's persuasion couldn't sway Stanley. His stance remained unyielding. He wanted to prove his competence by taking over the family business, thinking it would strengthen his position, but the family had long become a trap, a hot potato. Stanley failed to do his homework, still believing it was the same as before. Victor's words dripped with unmistakable mockery as he spoke. While everyone else avoided getting their hands dirty, Stanley went trotting over like an eager puppy. Days later, the family company fell into Stanley's hands. He went skipping off to report to the old man, only to be met with a blistering reprimand. Overwhelmed with emotion, Stanley collapsed. Emergency tests revealed his cancer had progressed to terminal stage. Stanley's parents fainted from grief. Hilda grabbed Mina, her eyes red with fury, and demanded, "Aren't you supposed to be a lucky charm? Ever since Stanley married you, he's had nothing but bad luck. Everything he touches turns to disaster. His health keeps deteriorating, and now it's terminal. Say something. Are you actually a fortune magnet or just a walking jinx?" Mina was too terrified to speak, shrinking behind Stanley for protection. Stanley raised his arm, clearly trying to shield her, but that was all he could manage. Hilda yanked Mina away and slapped her across the face several times. During the altercation, Stanley's fur line got kicked off, causing blood to flow back and form a red streak in the tube. Panicked, everyone scrambled to call the nurse. In a fluster, Mina fainted from sheer fright, but that wasn't all. I called the police and had my parents arrested. They spread malicious rumors about me, ruined my reputation, subjected me to emotional abuse and unlawful confinement. This injustice must be accounted for. When facing the officers, my parents still wore expressions of indignation. "Lucky, we're your biological parents. How could you have us arrested?" I produced the disownment agreement they'd thrown in my face. "You forced me to sign this. You're no longer my parents." What kind of real parents would treat their own daughter this way? Their faces twisted in awkward discomfort. "Even so, you have no right to treat us this way. Whatever we did to you is justified. We gave you life, but what you're doing now is pure ingratitude. Sorry, but there's only resentment between us, no debt of gratitude." I flung the contract into their arms. "Where was this conscience when you were hurting and abusing me?" My evidence was rock solid, and Victor even tracked down those guards and servants too. testify as tainted witnesses. They might escape criminal charges, but Victor will definitely come after them with a vengeance. After saying this, I handed over some evidence to the police. Officer, I suspect Ms. Lena murdered her own mother to please her husband. Lena looked up at me in shock. You hate me this much? I'm your mother. Don't you forget I'm your mother. So what? You said you'd sacrifice anyone for the man you love, even me, just because your man doesn't like me. You joined in. Abusing me too, didn't you? These words snuffed out Lena's last hope. Her eyes reddened as she choked out. I'm just a woman fighting for my love. What's so wrong about that? If you all couldn't make my husband cherish me, that's your failing. You really think a man who keeps mistresses and fathers illegitimate children loves you? You're the one he despises most. Why else would he hurt your own daughter and mother? His hatred isn't for us. It's for you. No way. My husband only loves me, Lena screamed hysterically. I sneered. The reason he loves Mina so much is because he's in love with Mina's mother, not you. Say something. Honey, please say something. Lena desperately sought Gerald, demanding a satisfactory answer, but Gerald's expression said it all. Her spirit shattered instantly, eyes dull and lifeless. Still, I must thank you, Gerald, for blessing me with this golden koi fortune. Since my marriage, my husband's career has soared. He'll soon defeat Stanley to become the sole heir of the Stanley family, and I owe Mina my gratitude too. Without her, how could you all have ended up like this? With that, I flashed a triumphant smile. Back when I was with the family, we barely maintained some semblance of balance. Now they've shattered that balance with their own hands. Gerald looked up in shock. How's that possible? They always believed Mina was supposed to be the lucky one. Every bit of misfortune at home got blamed on me. But after I left, they clearly felt the balance was broken. Their luck ran out and life turned miserable. I walked away with a smile. They were swiftly apprehended, and the case proceeded with remarkable speed. The Geralds were thrown behind bars, and their outrageous antics sparked an online frenzy. My reputation was restored. While Mina became the target of public scorn, Stanley got dragged into the mess as well. The old man visited him at the hospital for mere minutes, only to deliver the news of revoking his heir status. Whether he recovers or not, he'll never be the Stanley family's successor. 6. Simply put, his recent incompetence caused substantial losses, and the schemingly wed Mina has tarnished the Stanley name. The moment the patriarch left, Stanley was rushed into emergency care. After the successful rescue, Victor took me to see him. The moment Stanley saw me, his eyes instantly reddened as he weakly murmured, "I knew you'd come back," with a smile. I flashed the diamond ring on my finger and intertwined my fingers with Victor's, seeing our rings in clasped hands. Stanley's eyes widened in fury. Why? Because I don't love you. How could I possibly love someone who treated me like that? Stanley, you're so full of yourself. I did love you once, but I hate you even more. Thank you. We literally drove Stanley to his grave, until his dying breath. He never understood why my love turned to poison. All the pain and suffering I endured meant nothing in his eyes. Just like physical wounds that heal and disappear, why should I hold on to this hatred for him? His love really this fragile? After Stanley's death, Mina was immediately cast out of the Stanley family. She became a social pariah that everyone despised. Victor inherited the Stanley family and took the helm as its new leader. All right, these past few years have been smooth sailing for us, with good fortune touching every aspect of our lives. We've also been blessed with 2 adorable children. We unexpectedly ran into Mina while dining at the mall. Mina looked disheveled and unkempt, almost like a beggar. I almost didn't recognize her. If she hadn't come running toward me, shouting excitedly the moment she saw me, I wouldn't have known it was her. But before she could reach me, a falling sign from above crushed her to death. Thankfully, the kids were still in the car and didn't witness the scene. I shrugged and walked into the mall with Victor, linking arms. Story 2. The day before the zombie outbreak, I was reborn. Rather than saving the world, I'd prefer to just lay back and do nothing, so I abandoned the saintly heroine and set off alone to a well-supplied island. 01. In this apocalypse, I am the nefarious side character, resorting to any means necessary for survival, while my best friend embodies the perfect saintly heroine. After the zombie virus outbreak, I took her with me on a plane, planning to fly to a secluded island to escape the danger. However, her saintly compassion kicked in, and she insisted on stopping the private plane mid-route to save others. As a result, our plane was hijacked. Thus, our journey of escape began, and so, I embarked on my wicked life. Along the way, I did whatever it took to survive, from hoarding food to refusing to open doors, and thus began my life of sin. But as the saying goes, good people don't live long, and disasters linger for ages. I managed to survive until the end, witnessing the development of an antidote and the re-emergence of hope for humanity. I thought I was going back to my normal life, but alas, my saintly friend declared my sins too heavy and executed me on the spot. Damn it, I should have kicked her off the plane when I had the chance. 02. I thought I was dead, but I lived again. I returned to the day before the zombie virus outbreak, and without hesitation, I immediately instructed my assistant to arrange a private plane for me to fly to a secluded island. Though it's referred to as a secluded island, It's more accurately an undeveloped tourist area. 3 years ago, I lost my parents but inherited a fortune worth hundreds of billions. The island I was heading to is one of my father's tourism projects. Due to his passing and the 3-year-long pandemic, this development project had been put on hold. Although the project was delayed, the island was still well stocked. My mom was an apocalypse enthusiast, even though the island was being developed as a tourist destination. She had built a safe house right in the middle of it and stocked it with a warehouse full of rice and other foods. My dad adored her and spared no expense to buy guns and ammunition on the black market, and now, the safe house was mine. 03. I might have caught Alice's saintly heart because I hesitated while preparing to board the plane. There were still 22 hours left until the zombie virus outbreak. I could potentially save people in those 22 hours. However, I quickly dismissed that thought. Half a month before the outbreak, people online started raising alarms, urging attention to the situation in Z City. Z City was the first city where the zombie virus was deployed by Country M against our country, but that person's warnings were suppressed, and with no power or influence, just a pile of useless money. What could I do? I couldn't save the world, and I knew that better than anyone, so my fleeting saintly heart quickly faded. I boarded the private plane, but joining me were my mom's Burmese parrot and my dad's Tibetan Mastiff Labrador, saving one life at a time, and by one, I mean creatures that posed no threat to me. 04. As the plane took off, Alice sent me a message. Daniel, where are you? I came to your house but found no one. I just had a nightmare about zombies. I'm really scared now. Alice's confused words reminded me of the intricate web of lies I had spun. I had to think quickly to maintain the facade. Yes, it's a distant cousin, more like a family friend. We just refer to each other as cousins for simplicity, I explained with a casual shrug, hoping my relaxed demeanor would dispel any lingering doubts. Alice pondered for a moment, her gaze still carrying a trace of suspicion, but she seemed to accept my explanation. All right then, just make sure you're safe. The world seems to be getting crazier by the day. The conversation shifted to more mundane topics, but I could tell Alice was still processing the earlier exchange. Her trust was shaken, not just by the zombie apocalypse rumors, but perhaps also by the possibility that our reality was not as it seemed. As we said our goodbyes, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for deceiving her, but in these uncertain times, perhaps the less she knew, the safer she would be. In my previous life, that never happened. What are you talking about with past lives in this life? Are you seriously on drugs? I warned her earnestly. If you really are, I'm going to have to call the police on you. Alice quickly clarified, I'm not on drugs. That dream was so vivid, it felt real. It must have been from a past life. Stop with this past life nonsense. If there really were zombies, do you think the government would just sit by and do nothing? Plus, our country is so big that if there were zombies, it would only be in one area, a few rounds from a machine gun and it would all be over. There's nothing to worry about. Then why did your uncle suddenly take you to Country M? It must mean that our place isn't safe. Why does everything lead back to zombies with you? My uncle took me to Country M because my cousin is getting married, and they want to cash in on a gift from me. If it weren't for paying respects at my grandfather's grave, I wouldn't bother with this event. I've never had a good relationship with my uncle. Right after my parents died, he and my aunt were quick to try and take over my family's property. It's no wonder we don't get along, so, as far as I'm concerned, my current behavior is no different from before the supposed apocalypse. My acting skills are practically perfect. With my rambling, Alice's suspicion seemed to lessen. However, she asked a critical question. Do you own an island in the East Sea, with a safe house on it? It seems we've circled back to my secluded island, but as long as I can delay and get to the island first, I might have a chance to survive. After all, there's even a machine gun on the island. If Alice, driven by her altruism, brings a crowd to the island, I'll just need to set up my machine gun at the entrance of the safe house. Of course, that's the worst-case scenario. I prefer to nip dangers in the bud rather than face unknown threats. I sent out the text message I had prepared earlier. The reply from my assistant calmed me down, allowing me to continue dealing with Alice, the island in the East Sea. I furrowed my brow. Are you talking about the Unua Bay Retirement and Vacation Center? Yes, that's the one, Alice asked excitedly. Is there a safe house on that island? What safe house? The apocalypse safe house your dad designed for your mom, with guns, ammunition, food, bottled water, and an independent generator. Are you writing a novel here? I rolled my eyes at the screen. Guns and ammunition. Do you think my dad was a warlord from the Republic era? Alice opened her mouth to say more but then stopped. She stared intently at the screen, doubt and suspicion creeping back into her expression. Is she doubting my words? Or is she questioning her own memory? I don't know, but I do know she's fallen into confusion again, like me. She's experienced an apocalypse, from fleeing, to killing, to establishing a base. Those unbearable experiences felt like just yesterday, but the moment she opened her eyes, everything returned to the tragic beginning. The bustling streets, the noisy crowds, the terrifying zombies, all gone, replaced by a peaceful world free from any visible crisis. The moment I opened my eyes, I too couldn't help but wonder if the apocalyptic experiences were just a nightmare. But the message about Arthur's disappearance arrived on time on my phone. He was my father's foster son and had rarely shown up since my father's death. Though we weren't in frequent contact, he had named me as the heir to his estate, a pharmaceutical enterprise worth billions, enough to leave me in shock. In a previous life, to celebrate the unexpected surprise, I arranged a night out with Alice. During our revelry that night, I received a cryptic text message: "Zombie virus leaked. Run for your life." At the time, I didn't pay much attention to the message until violence erupted at the club and a gruesome scene unfolded before my eyes. It was then that I believed the text. The zombie virus was real. Before the police could take witnesses back to the station, I used my privilege to escape with Alice. We were supposed to safely flee to an island refuge, but Alice, wanting to save more people, convinced the pilot to land in City Z. With flights in City Z suspended, our sole private plane became the people's salvation. The crowd surged forward, and not a few died in the scuffle to board, but I couldn't stop any of it, as my hands were tied, literally, and I had lost all power to influence. Moreover, I had to bear the consequences of the private plane's chaotic flight. Luckily, there was an accident. Alice's kindness didn't earn the gratitude of those she saved. Instead, it sparked rage with her mention of a private plane. Alice and I suddenly became the target of public ire, and the crew, once aligned with us, switched sides. In the last minute before takeoff, we were mercilessly kicked off the plane. Given my nature, I should have parted ways with Alice then and there. However, her sincere apology for the difficult survival made me reconsider and forgive her. Yet, the cracks in our friendship had already formed, and coupled with our differing values, we kept clashing while trying to survive. She risked her life to save endangered victims and harbored a murderer without considering the consequences. I, on the other hand, was a hindrance in her rescue efforts, embodying selfishness and evil to the fullest. Until the end, when I was forced to kill Dylan, Alice turned decisively against me, championing justice. She listed my sins and sentenced me to death. The deafening gunshot still echoes in my ears, but I refused to waste time on revenge. Surviving well is my purpose for being reborn. I didn't avoid Alice's scrutinizing gaze but looked straight into the camera. Upon seeing Alice through the video call, I knew I couldn't dissuade her belief in the apocalypse, nor did I think I could convince her to abandon her plan to head to the isolated island. When she hesitated to speak, I indicated that I was about to hang up. Alice stopped me, her earlier caution replaced with deep, sincere attention. "Daniel, no matter what, I am your best friend. I hope you live well." I didn't understand Alice's sudden change of attitude, but it didn't stop her from potentially killing me. She had already concluded that I was a selfish fiend devoid of morals and the most venomous presence in an apocalypse. When disaster strikes again, she would shoot me without hesitation, but I will never give her that chance. I didn't respond to her parting words, just stared at the screen. A faint honk came from Alice's side. I gave Alice a slight smile. "I'm just going abroad, not to the grave. Why such a fuss?" Alice didn't reply, her face filled with pity as she looked at me. I think Alice might not suspect that I, too, have been reborn. She believes everything I've told her, which is why she pities my foolish decision to head to Country M. After all, Country M will also face a zombie virus outbreak, and surviving there as a person of color will be much harder than escaping domestically. Alice's pitying look faded. The friendship of the past had already dissipated under the pressures of the apocalypse. Perhaps the person Alice pitied was not me, but the naive and sweet girl who brought her endless benefits before the apocalypse. However, my actions during the apocalypse deeply disappointed her. As she said goodbye and was about to end the call, the car she was in abruptly stopped. A harsh and prolonged honking sound came from her phone, and through the shaky video, one could vaguely see an ambulance from the Little Bridge Psychiatric Hospital. It blocked the car Alice was in, and several burly men in white nursing uniforms menacingly descended from the ambulance wielding pitchforks. "What's going on?" Alice barely had time to ask before the driver jumped out of the car and fled. Before she could react, one of the orderlies tried to open the car door next to her. Alice clung desperately to her door, but the other door was already swung open. Just as she was about to be forcibly pulled from the car, she somehow produced a kitchen knife and began swinging it through the air. A long pitchfork reached inside from outside the car, pinning Alice inside. A rubber button brutally struck her wrist, causing her to drop the knife in pain, and a man took the opportunity to enter the car and subdue her. "What are you doing? I'm not mentally ill. This is illegal. I'm going to call the police on you." "Daniel, did you arrange this? I should have known. Why else would you suddenly want to go abroad unless you too had been reborn? You heartless woman, planning to trap me in a mental hospital. After being reborn, I even thought of calling you. How could you treat me like this?" Alice let out a piercing scream, struggling fiercely, her slender hands desperately searching around, seemingly looking for a way to escape, but her struggles were in vain. A sedative quickly silenced her. I watched as the orderlies loaded her into the ambulance and did not intervene to stop them. As Alice had said, the person who had the psychiatric hospital take her away was me. I looked at my phone, where a message from my assistant still lingered in the notification bar. He was always so efficient, having arranged everything in just about 10 minutes. Such a high-profile approach inevitably attracted onlookers. Fortunately, the driver who abandoned the car provided a narrative. My goodness, you have no idea how terrifying that woman was. Really scary, all twitchy. She got in the car and started saying that zombies were coming and told me to ignore the red lights and just drive. I felt something was off about her right from the start. If it weren't for the kitchen knife I saw in her bag, I would have kicked her out much earlier. It's all because of playing with phones when we were young. Who had mental illness? Now, it's these young people, all messed up by their smartphones. The driver spoke as if he understood it all, critiquing the modern phenomenon of constant phone use while cursing Alice's irresponsible family for almost costing him his life. Bored, I was about to end the call when a comment from one of the orderlies made my already relaxed nerves tense up again. This is the third patient this month who claims they've been reborn. You think there really could be zombies? Does it matter if there are zombies? What's the difference between us and zombies now? All we do is work day after day, and with the little money we save, we can't even afford a house. Honestly, we might as well just become zombies. At least they don't have to work or deal with anxiety. The video call was ended by the orderlies, but my mood took a long time to settle. The reborn were not just the two of us. In a previous life, Alice had marked the location of a solitary island along our escape route, noting that the island had ample supplies and was secure. I scoffed at this, thinking it would only attract trouble, but Alice believed that we might not safely reach the island, and leaving information about it could give other survivors hope. This was the only thing we could do for humanity in the apocalypse now. I have no idea how many people have been reborn, or whether those who have been reborn have seen the markings left by Alice, but I can't afford to take that risk. From the zombie outbreak to reaching the island, I know better than anyone that zombies aren't the real terror. The truly frightening ones are those who commit atrocities under the guise of the zombie crisis. They pretend to be eliminating zombies but instead turn their weapons on passersby, reveling in the violence, then blame all their crimes on the zombies. Dylan, whom I killed in my previous life, was one of their accomplices. In my past life, Alice, upon reaching the island, didn't suppress her savior complex. She suggested leaving the island in groups to search for survivors of the apocalypse. Her conspicuous actions and ample ammunition drew their attention. They targeted the island, sending people disguised as survivors in batches to probe our strengths and weaknesses, planning to trap us from both inside and out. During one such mission off the island, I caught Dylan communicating with outsiders and uncovered this plot. They weren't yet aware of the safe house's layout, but their team had recently included a master locksmith who had cracked open bank vaults, coupled with unused bombs stolen from a police station. They weren't worried about breaking in, preferring cunning over brute force. They planned to contaminate the island's food and water supplies with the zombie virus. I intended to inform others, but Dylan and his contact caught me. In the ensuing chaos, I was severely injured, my vocal cords slashed and an eye blinded, but I managed to bite and kill Dylan's accomplice and Dylan himself. The loud gunfire drew other members of our team. Dylan's accomplice, taking advantage of my inability to speak, accused me of killing out of anger due to a dispute with Dylan. Having had past conflicts with Dylan, Alice, and the others didn't give me a chance to defend myself and sentenced me to death on the spot. Since I was sentenced to death, I never disclosed Dylan's intentions. If I was to die, we would all die together. The people who targeted the island in my past life might have been reborn too. They aren't as foolish or as easy to deal with as Alice. Therefore, I decided to enter a doomsday mode in advance, to handle any unforeseen incidents before reaching the safe house. I shaved my long hair into a buzz cut to prevent anyone from grabbing it during a fight. Then, I took a nail clipper and shaped my nails into serrated edges. If not for the limited tools, I would have sharpened all my teeth too, to use my mouth in fights along with my hands and feet, gaining the upper hand. Of course, the most important thing was to check my gear before heading to the airport. I rummaged through the storage room at home. I found my mother's homemade emergency survival kit, which contained nothing but nearly expired medicines and compressed biscuits. But from my father's storage box, I found a bulletproof vest, knee pads, knuckle dusters, a baton, and a dagger. I wore the bulletproof vest and knee pads, tucked the dagger into my boots, and wore a loose jacket over them, looking a bit bulky but otherwise not much different from an ordinary person. As for the knuckle dusters and baton, I had used them during the apocalypse. They weren't hard to handle, though I wasn't skilled with them. To increase my chances of survival, I learned some techniques from online tutorials right on the plane. By the time I had mastered them, the plane had just landed. Since the island had no airport and to avoid drawing attention from the crew, I planned to fly to each city closest to the island and then switch to a yacht. Reaching the Island. After an hour and a half of sailing, the journey might not be safe. Just as I was about to leave the airport, an alarm sounded from a passerby's phone. It beeped for 15 seconds, paused for 10 seconds, beeped for another 5 seconds, paused again for 10 seconds, and this sequence repeated 3 times, totaling 2 minutes. It was a disaster alert. Usually, such sounds aren't used as background music in online videos. The only explanation was that a city had issued a disaster alert, and residents captured and shared it on social platforms. I turned to look at the passerby. He stood there, shocked, while another passerby's phone broadcasted a news report. At 3 a.m. on December 13th, Kyoto time, City Z triggered a disaster alert. Armed forces rushed to assist overnight. It is reported that the virus was deliberately released by foreign forces. 18 hours before the full outbreak of the zombie virus, the nation had already taken action. My phone vibrated slightly, displaying several new messages. National Health Commission reminder. Do not underestimate the new virus. If symptoms such as fever, fear of water, dry eyes, breathing difficulties, vomiting, or headaches are present, please report them immediately and isolate at home. People's Government of City H. Those who have been in City Z or City G in the last 30 days, please report voluntarily and self-isolate. We urge all citizens to cooperate with the prevention and control arrangements and to avoid panic. I opened Facebook and saw that terms related to the zombie virus and the military suppression in City Z were rapidly climbing the trending list, dominating the page in just half a minute. The top trending entry was about the development of an antibody drug for the zombie virus. Unlike usual trending searches, the post about the research progress wasn't filled with similar news content but included other messages about the zombie virus. The nation's leader made a speech announcing the reactivation of epidemic control measures. A detailed introduction to the zombie virus claimed the outbreak was under control within our country. Cities Z and G were completely locked down, with the northern provinces providing material support. Several cities entered a state of emergency, and epidemiological investigations were intensively underway. Someone had interfered with the normal course of the world. Maybe in this lifetime, the zombie virus wouldn't break out completely, but I wasn't willing to gamble on that. I just wanted to hide on an island and stay safe in my previous life. The city I lived in had experienced a zombie virus outbreak. However, I hadn't seen any news about the zombie virus in City A online yet, which meant whether it had leaked was still unknown. If news of the leak in City A were to surface, I would likely face mandatory quarantine. If I were forcibly placed in a hotel, the dangers I'd face would be much greater than now. I might even have to endure another desperate escape for my life. Therefore, I needed to move quickly and leave the airport for the dock before policies and the situation changed. As I was about to get into the car, a familiar face entered my view. It was Dylan, the Dylan I had killed. I quickly slipped into the car and hid behind the passenger seat, watching Dylan. His face was pale, his eyes swollen. He dragged his suitcase in a hurry out of the airport, and in his rush, he bumped into a woman in her 60s. Normally, others might have recoiled from Dylan's fierce and murderous expression, but he had bumped into someone fearless. Hey, young man, you think you can just walk away after bumping into someone? The woman lay on the ground, grabbing his trouser leg. Are you blind or just mute? Can't even say sorry. Get lost. Dylan forcefully pulled his leg free from the woman's grasp, an action that only infuriated her further. She stood up, grabbed Dylan's hair, and threatened to educate him on behalf of his parents while they argued. I noticed stains on Dylan's sleeve, looking like either blood or ketchup. However, as he pushed the woman away, I saw a wound under his sleeve. It wasn't large, but it looked like a bite. I recalled my memories of Dylan. We met him in City H. He spoke with a northern accent and claimed that his wife and child had been infected by a zombie virus. He often spoke in front of us about how much he missed his wife, recounting over a decade of companionship and the risks he took caring for her after she turned into a zombie. He tried hard to portray himself as a deeply loving husband, using the ring on his finger as a symbol of his love and the photos in his wallet as precious memories. However, I didn't think he was a good person at all. The lust and sleazy expressions in his eyes disgusted me from the moment I first saw him. Moreover, he would unconsciously take off his ring from time to time. The mark on his finger almost faded away. What was most crucial was that I had killed a female zombie in City Z while scavenging for supplies. Her face had been smashed beyond recognition, but I remembered the 5 small black moles on her neck and the style of the ring on her finger. These 2 crucial pieces of information matched the wife in Dylan's photos. When I killed her, I felt she was different from other zombies. She moved slowly, didn't attack others aggressively, and seemed to harbor malice towards the photos in the room, mindlessly tearing at them. As I killed her, she was mumbling incoherently, XX kill me, because her brain was infected by the virus. She couldn't accurately mention Dylan's name, but the room where she was trapped was filled with crooked blood-written words. The blood-written words were Dylan's name. I shared my suspicions with others, but Dylan denied coming from City Z. Also, Alice and others had already sensed my hostility towards Dylan and thought I was trying to ostracize another survivor, the zombie wife from City Z showing up in City H prematurely. The scolding of airport security snapped me back to reality. I looked up to see Dylan taking the opportunity to break free from an old lady's intervention, twisting his head and slipping into a taxi to speed away. I noted down the license plate number, told the driver to follow quickly, and then opened my phone. This time, I didn't call my assistant but instead contacted the Epidemic Prevention Office in City H. It would be best to handle things on the road. I suspect that Dylan has been infected with the zombie virus. His irritable behavior, pallid face, and crimson eye sockets indeed resembled those of an infected person. I exaggerated my reasonable suspicions when I spoke to the operator. I claimed I was the granddaughter of an old lady who was knocked down by a middle-aged man at the airport suspected of being infected with the zombie virus. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale, and he was sweating profusely, seeming extremely irritable as if on the brink of collapse. What was even more terrifying was that he had a bite mark on his wrist, which matched the symptoms reported in the news. Upon hearing about the bite, the operator became tense. Is it really a bite mark? Yes. I'm not sure if it was from a dog or what, but as soon as I saw it, he covered it with his clothing as if afraid of being discovered. Do you know his name or flight information? I don't, but I know his license plate number. I asked nervously, if he is not infected, will you penalize me? During these special times, it's understandable. You can rest assured and provide the suspected infected person's license plate number. I gave the license plate number directly to the operator, then instructed the driver to follow Dylan's car, keeping a safe distance without overtaking. I didn't want to expose myself before Dylan was apprehended. We had driven for less than 5 minutes when I heard a sharp, urgent honking. A police car whizzed past us and stopped the taxi. As we drove by, I turned to look back and saw Dylan attempting to escape, but a police officer quickly pinned him to the ground. However, I clearly saw Dylan's expression. He began drooling profusely and instinctively tried to bite the officer. It seems that he really was infected with the zombie virus. With Dylan out of the picture, I could finally rest easy and instructed the driver to speed towards the dock. In less than 4 hours, I had already dealt with 2 troubles. However, the trouble I feared the most had yet to appear. That person was Elijah, the fugitive saved by Alice. Although Elijah was a murderous drug dealer, he was transformed by Alice's kindness during the apocalypse. Whenever Alice found herself in danger, he courageously stepped up and saved her time and again. Given his feelings for Alice, if he were reborn, he would surely seek her out again. All I could do was pray that Elijah had not been reborn. 17. Unfortunately, against my wishes, Elijah actually did come looking. As I was nearing the island in my yacht, another yacht appeared out of nowhere and crashed into mine. The yacht rocked, and the Tibetan Mastiff and Labrador started barking wildly. I steadied myself and quickly drew my dagger. Warily looking outside, a tall figure jumped aboard. It was indeed Elijah. Where's Alice? Elijah looked around. Why are you alone? How should I know? She might still be in City A. I retorted sarcastically. She killed me in her past life. You think I'd continue to keep her company? I openly acknowledged my identity as a reborn person in response to Elijah's question. After all, our meeting here could only mean one thing. Pretending to be ignorant would only expose more flaws. He squinted, clearly not believing my words. Did she not come, or did you find a way to prevent her from coming? What do you think is more important, saving your own life or seeking revenge? I countered, I wouldn't want to waste my time on grudges. While saving your life, you can also seek revenge. Elijah sneered, you're no better than I am. I've already had my revenge. The island was destroyed, wasn't it? I smiled sweetly. If you, the human shield, have been reborn, then Alice must have met a terrible end. Elijah stopped talking, rotating his wrist with a crackling sound of joints in the cockpit. This was his warm-up routine before killing. He had no intention of letting me live. 18. Fortunately, Elijah couldn't kill me just yet because he didn't know the password to the armory. Watching the snarling Tibetan Mastiff eager to strike, Elijah stopped approaching me and instead played the family card. He claimed he was going to City A to take Alice away, and all I needed to do was provide him with Alice's location and the weapons. As for the island, he had no plans to return, as it might not be safe. Men's words, deceitful tricks. If he was strictly guarding the island, would it be unsafe? He just wanted me to let down my guard, so he could kill me after getting the weapons. I saw through his scheme but continued to play along. Saving her is your business. Why should I help you? For all we know, she might not have been reborn and wouldn't recognize you at all. I glanced surreptitiously at the phone on the table, slowly edging my body towards it. Elijah noticed this movement, naturally guessing I'd see through his intentions. He knew my character well. Even in death, I'd take someone down with me. As soon as I got my hands on the phone, I was determined to destroy it, to completely cut off any communication with Alice. When I pretended to reach for the phone, he lunged at me. He tried to snatch the phone away. But as he rushed forward, his neck was exposed and within my reach. I quickly raised my left hand and slashed his throat with a dagger. However, his reflexes were quicker than mine. The dagger only managed to make a small cut before he grabbed my wrist and forcefully dislocated it. As he raised his fist to strike my face, a Tibetan Mastiff by my side pounced on him. "Benjamin, kill him," I commanded. The man and the dog wrestled together. Elijah was pinned down by the Tibetan Mastiff, his right hand firmly clamped in its jaws. Blood flowed across the deck, and Elijah's screams mingled with the sound of breaking bones. Yet, compared to a zombie devouring human flesh, the scene was hardly gruesome. Strangely, the scene felt eerily familiar to me. Flashes of memory passed through my mind, as if after being shot, I had inexplicably turned into a zombie. Unlike other zombies, though, I had a clear purpose: to find Alice and the others and kill them. So, I made my way to the dock, found a yacht, refueled it, and with a fierce determination, I headed to the back of the island to wait for the right moment. Had I also been infected with the zombie virus, perhaps it was related to the metal spike that blinded me. Since the zombie virus spreads through bodily fluids, if the spike had traces of zombie blood on it, it likely caused my infection. However, rather than exploring the reasons behind my previous life as a zombie, killing Elijah was my immediate priority. I turned to look at Elijah. He was like a cockroach that wouldn't die. Even as the Mastiff nearly bit off his right hand, he endured the pain and stabbed at the dog with his left hand. Seeing this, I kicked the knife from his hand, stepped on his wrist, and was about to add another slash to his throat when a gunshot stopped me. The sound of the bullet-piercing flesh echoed in my ears. I even felt it whizzing past me, shot after shot. The person behind me fired twice. My right hand holding the dagger trembled slightly, but the bullets did not hit me. I turned to look at the Mastiff next to me, only to see it lower its head heavily and collapse on top of Elijah. "Police, don't move, Dylan. In my past life, when I was shot, why didn't anyone call out police then?" Elijah and I were taken to the island by the police, but it was Elijah, not me, who was handcuffed. Upon landing, I saw Hazel in a military uniform. In my past life, though she hadn't shared much about herself, I had guessed that her identity was not simple, so seeing her in a military uniform didn't surprise me at all. Moreover, I trusted her more than Alice. After all, she had saved me twice and had stood behind me during my confrontation with Alice. When it came to establishing a base on the island, Alice, aiming to prevent any dictatorial rule, led the proposal for a joint governance. What she called joint governance was essentially forcing me to relinquish control of the safe house, although I had shared the safe house's password with Alice while on the run. That password was only the first step to access the safe house. It could open the villa above, but not the safe house built underneath. The safe house was located below the villa, with basic living quarters on the first and second sublevels, stocked with supplies like rice, compressed biscuits, canned goods, bottled water, and USB drives containing various films and shows. The third sublevel was a medical storage room, not only equipped with various medicines, medical equipment, and medical books, but also a specially constructed sterile surgery room. The fourth sublevel is an armory that contains everything from ancient bows, crossbows, swords, and knives to modern pistols and bombs, in various styles and models. The fifth sublevel houses a seed bank, storing seeds of various grains, crops, and flowering plants, equipped with USB drives and books on planting techniques and culinary instruction. After arriving on the island, Alice naturally discovered that the password I gave her couldn't actually access the real safe house. Faced with her skepticism, I repeatedly assured her that I would distribute the supplies fairly and reasonably, but Alice had already lost her trust in me. She was convinced that I would use the resources of the safe house to oppress other members of the island. Under her influence, some members also feared that I would hoard the supplies, and they clamored for me to hand over the password. I had considered holing up in the safe house and letting them fend for themselves, but that plan wasn't viable after all. There were sufficient supplies outside the safe house, with chickens, ducks, cattle, and sheep readily available, and a supermarket that still housed a batch of goods moved from the safe house. Though nearing expiration, these were enough to sustain the island's inhabitants for a while. I couldn't hide in the safe house forever, especially since I genuinely needed people to help cultivate crops and rear livestock. Moreover, among the island's inhabitants was a doctor, an irreplaceable role. Eventually, under Hazel's mediation, I handed over the password. Of course, I only gave access to the first 3 levels, while retaining administrative rights to change the password. As a condition, Alice and others did not stay in the safe house but in other standard residences. The armory, being a critical part of the safe house, couldn't be controlled by me alone, but I couldn't give the password to Alice or others who were relatively strong leaders but not very close to me. After much deliberation, I entrusted the password to Hazel, who was highly respected on the island and neither particularly close nor distant from me. Hazel agreed to my plan but also suggested moving into the safe house and taking turns on guard duty to ensure the security of the weapons. Unexpectedly, despite all my calculations, I didn't foresee this twist involving Hazel. While others thought of fleeing to the island for refuge, Hazel directly led a team to strip the island bare. I looked around and saw a dozen soldiers loading boxes onto a ship. Those boxes, familiar to my eyes, were from the armory, storing arms and ammunition. I wanted to wave at Hazel, as in my memory, we had just met yesterday and were quite familiar, but seeing the bustling police officers and the crates of weapons, I gave up on warmly greeting her and instead played the role of an ignorant and unreasonable rich second generation. Angrily, I shouted at a police officer who had killed a Tibetan Mastiff, "Where is your leader? You killed my guard dog for a murderer. Is there no justice or law?" The officer turned pale from my shouting, anxiously looking towards an older colleague. Before the other officer could speak, I preempted loudly, "What is going on here? Who allowed you to land on the island? This is my private property. You are trespassing." Just then, Hazel heard the commotion and came over. She acted as if she didn't know me, officially explaining, "Miss, the police have already obtained a search warrant, but due to the urgency and inability to contact you, we had to land on the island beforehand." "What urgency, and who gave you the right to move my things?" Hazel waved her hand, and the nearby officers immediately left. She looked towards Elijah in the distance. "The police received a tip-off that drug dealer Elijah is active in this area, but a search is a search. What gives you the right to move things around on the island?" Hazel smirked slightly, whispering, "You do know what's in those boxes, don't you?" My mouth agape. I realized she indeed had been reborn. "Silence me." She glanced at the distant police officer, with one of them stealthily watching us. I instantly understood her meaning. "Keep acting. Don't reveal any knowledge about the safe house, and certainly don't mention anything about being reborn. What's inside the box?" I feigned ignorance. "Though I haven't seen those boxes, this island is my private property, and everything on it should rightfully be mine. We cannot disclose the specifics, but the boxes contain items stolen from the military. Are you claiming these as your personal property as well?" I covered my mouth in surprise and stared at the boxes in shock. "What do you mean? How could there be military items on the island? According to our records, your company ceased development of the island 3 years ago." Hazel stroked her chin. "It must have been during that time that Mr. transported these items here." I nodded in agreement. "Who would have thought a criminal would hide so much contraband on my island? It's indeed a failure on my part to not have discovered it sooner, although it was Elijah who took the blame. Without those treasures, wouldn't staying on the island be fraught with danger? What if the people from my past life who targeted the island risked their lives to seize it again? What would I fight them with? A fork or scissors?" I took out my phone to check the latest news updates, then quickly analyzed the current situation. Firstly, the city most severely affected by the zombie virus has been quarantined and is now under military guard. Should the zombie virus become uncontrollable, the nation would likely resort to extraordinary measures. Secondly, several major cities that subsequently experienced outbreaks of the zombie virus have already arrested spies responsible for spreading it. This suggests that the situation is relatively optimistic, as the zombie virus is still within a controllable range. Lastly, no place is safer than where the leadership resides. I looked around and lowered my voice to ask Hazel, "Is the military compound where you live particularly empty?" "What's wrong? How about I move my food supplies to the military compound?" I smiled ingratiatingly. "Given the severe epidemic situation, it's only right that I donate my resources. If possible, I'd even use half of my assets to buy military protection. After all, the other half of my assets is more than enough for me, not to mention Arthur's inheritance, which hasn't yet been transferred." But who exactly replaced the supplies in the safe house? I initially thought it was my diligent assistant who had timely swapped out the food and medicine in the safe house, but he didn't know the safe house's password. Moreover, after being reborn, I asked him, and he said he hadn't taken care of the island affairs for a long time. Could it be Arthur? I don't know where Arthur is, nor do I know if it was he who had someone replace the supplies in the safe house. But now, what I need most is not to find Arthur, but to find a way into the military compound, preferably the military compound in Kyoto. Hazel knew what I was thinking. She stated that the military intended to requisition my island. As for the supplies on the island, they naturally fell within the scope of the requisition. In her words, everything in the safe house was illicit gains, and I should cooperate with her operation. She didn't specify why the requisition was necessary, but I had a rough idea. It must be related to the Zombie virus. As for my personal safety, Hazel had me stay at a military compound in Kyoto under the guise of being her younger sister. With this arrangement, I naturally agreed to relinquish the island. Before parting, Hazel specifically asked for Alice's contact information and inquired about Arthur's whereabouts. I don't know where Arthur has gone, nor am I aware of the specifics of his company's business. As for Alice, I candidly revealed the fact that she had been confined in a mental hospital. Hazel didn't say much, simply asked for the name of the mental hospital before she left. I wasn't sure what Hazel intended to do, but as I was leaving the island for City H, a shabby-looking boat approached us from the opposite direction, guarded by soldiers. A man in a white lab coat stood at the bow, admiring the scenery. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, and his familiar silhouette made me take a closer look. That man was the doctor from the island base. Looking towards the cabin, I saw Dylan running out, but he didn't get far before being knocked out by the approaching soldiers. The doctor on deck turned to look at me. I looked back briefly, my expression fleeting and indifferent, as if he were a stranger. Our ships crossed paths, heading in different directions. Besides Hazel, I resolved not to discuss the matter of being reborn with anyone else. The reason for my trip to the island was firmly attributed to prior knowledge of City Z's predicament. I decided not to meddle in the affairs of the island or inquire about the whereabouts of Alice, Dylan, Elijah, and others. As for Arthur, he had been out of contact. The mysterious person who texted me in my previous life did not reappear in this one later. After 3 months of suppression, the virus control that came at the cost of millions of lives came to an end. The plan to reduce the human population under the guise of a zombie virus was exposed by multiple countries. At the press conference revealing the truth, I saw Arthur, who had been missing for days. He presented ledgers and videos, accusing Country M of their crimes at the conference. The so-called zombie virus was essentially a meticulously planned act of murder. Country M had deployed the virus in various countries and provided military weapons during the outbreak, with spies orchestrating terror acts to reduce the global population. Arthur said a lot, but my gaze stayed fixed on the scars on the back of his hand, triggering fragments of memories in my mind. It seemed that after I was shot, my body gradually cooled, yet my mind was still active. A man appeared in my view, injecting me with an unknown substance, the scars on his hand identical to Arthur's. Rumors circulated online. It was said that the zombie virus could bring the dead back to life. Could that be true? If so, the zombie virus might not end after all. Human greed could perpetuate its existence indefinitely. And as someone who has been reborn, am I really safe?